The year is now 2025, and it's time to start our brand new 2025 Jeep Wrangler build.
The build plan for this Jeep. The crazy idea, based upon the color and the fact that it has two doors, to make this a modern day Willys MB or GPW.
But where do we even begin? About a month ago, we drove all the way down to Brian and his team at Distinction Applied, and we didn't leave our truck bed empty. We brought a ton of factory parts off of this Jeep Wrangler and got them painted in the 41 clear coat. We're gonna get into the history of why we did this to the Jeep, why some parts look the way they do, and break it down for you guys that might not have been so happy we didn't leave an accent color. Throughout military history, especially in World War II, vehicles would have been painted in a single flat or earth tone color. This was to help them blend in, not be noticeable to enemies, as well as to make them harder to be photographed. And with our build here, we decided to keep that theme, keep it single color, and really give it some small accent pieces. So we went down to Brian, we specifically brought these pieces and told him how we wanted them to be matched. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse into what we're doing. Not all of them were matched into the factory 41 color. We have some really cool historical accents that we wanted to do to this Jeep to not only give it that history and that historically correct feel, but also just because we felt it looked a little bit better. The first part that we decided to install was going to be the largest part that was shipped home with us, and that was the 2024 grille. Now, a lot of people are wondering why we went with a completely color matched 41 grille. And initially, I might have to side with a lot of those commenters that might be like, that's a bit much. Why didn't we keep the factory grille and maybe just accent a little bit like the 41 concept that Jeep is releasing? In 1941, when these Jeeps would have rolled out of the assembly line, everything was OD green. And we wanted to do just that with our 41 color. So Brian and his team took apart the entire grille like they normally do when they would mix match different colors, and they painted every single piece in 41 clear coat.
Yeah guys, this is just one of the metric ton of color match parts that we're installing on this Jeep. If you guys want to see like detailed installs of everything, be sure to visit Distinction Applied's YouTube channel. We'll tag that down below and you'll see a lot more of me on that channel. So it's kind of neat because we have the detailed installs over there for their site and for their purposes. And then on here, we just get to do the fun stuff. So, but yeah, this is, it's pulling like Sarge from Cars, you know, the movie, like that exact, like, it just looks like if you're gonna do color match anything, kind of why we chose this color, this is meant to all be the same color. You know, it's meant to be sprayed out because they would have just taken it and sprayed the whole thing just like this. So really neat here, just finishing it up. And obviously we got the DRC grill lights in there too, and they fit right in.
And as we were working front to back on the Jeep, the next thing that we decided to rip off and add a color matched piece on was the hood latches. Now in 1941, once again, these hood latches would have come completely sprayed out in olive drab green. So we decided to get the entire thing sprayed. Now while we couldn't get this to be exactly like the original Jeep, which would have had spring-loaded clasps, much like the CJ5, CJ7, YJs that I've owned, that you actually pull it up, the springs all start to rust inside there. These gave it a nice subtle touch and really started to flow that color match in as we got closer to the front windshield.
I like them. Yeah, I think the hood latches look, I've never done the inside ones, but it looks cool from this angle. You can kind of see it in there, but maybe we'll go, I don't know. We're gonna definitely keep these ones around because my fear is that we're constantly popping and opening the hood is that they're gonna wear that paint, but I've also seen how the paint goes on. So this will be a good testament to see how well they do as a paint job.
You know, I looked at the original Willys MB, the 4 GPWs, and the windshield bumpers or the fold down windshield area would have been a wood block back in the day. Now, most of them were sprayed out, right? They would have been sprayed in olive drab green, but they were wood blocks underneath. And so we decided to use the old school style, right? Like it would have been a wood grain block on the hood of that Jeep. And then Brian has these covered up pieces that just snap right over top of the windshield bumpers. And I thought to myself, hey, he's got the most amazing hydro dipping I've ever seen. Could you do wood grain on this? And he was like, yeah, no problem. Let's do it. We did wood grain covered up windshield bumpers on this Jeep to try and tie in some of the heritage of the original Willys MB and just give it such a cool accent on the hood.
So that grain, this is almost like, it would be reminiscent of like a wood stock of like one of the weapons that would have been used in World War II, kind of the same color on there. We had a couple choices, like you could have done with a really dark grain or something like that. But when I was looking at any colorized photos of World War I, like Willys MBs, there's not many. There's not many out there. So I was looking at more of the modern restored ones and they all kind of had this similar grain. It's gonna be reminiscent of the old school stuff, but then it's got a touch of the new, right? So we don't want to put wood blocks on here, but we got it just about to look like there are wood blocks. So
the next part, of course, was the bread and butter piece for Distinction Applied, the paint matched cowl panel. Brian and his team are probably painting, I don't know how many hundreds of these things a month. Not only do they look fantastic, but they also replace a potentially faded cowl panel, or in our case, that black cowl panel that never really would have been in place throughout most of the years of the Wrangler as well. So we got this one in 41 as well, but Brian and I might change that up in the future because we saw some cool ideas with tattered flags that he hydro dips on there. But for now, the 41 green ties in so cleanly throughout the hood, and now right up all the way to the windshield, you have none of these huge panels that are in that more of a matte or a flat black.
That's a must. I love it. I mean, the only thing I said is after seeing them hydro dipped in like a flag, I think that would have been kind of neat up here. But then it's like, what color flag do you do? Because we have a lot of decals going on this Jeep. But just to start, the color match cowl panel, it's one of those things that you kind of get to see every day too, because when you're driving, you can see it, as well as like the covered up hood bumpers. But yeah, the cowl panel it's like a must have. For under 200 bucks, it fixes a problem, it removes a lot of that black plastic, and it really can give you a nice accent piece if you dip it. So
going back towards the front, a piece that I've swapped out on Ryan's and a bunch of other Jeeps, and something that is so cool because you can actually accent 2 different tones on there, which we didn't, we went on 41, the fender vents. So this is a part that we've done multiple times, and I do think it makes a really cool change to the side of the Jeep. And I would say it makes an even bigger change when you have color matched fender flares. In our case, it contrasts crazy with the black fenders that we have on the Jeep, but don't worry, those aren't gonna be here too much longer. We added a set of the color matched fender vents on here, and I just think it really flows in easier onto the front end.
That's like one of those things that once we have all the rest of this done, these just blend in so nicely. But yeah, doing them in 41, that just gives it a little bit of a cool touch. The only other thing we thought of maybe is doing that in a two-tone as well in the future, but we have some plans with our fenders, so those might actually unfortunately have to go. So, but we got some cool things planned with this. Yeah, I'm loving it. Fender vents and the cowl panel. And then we replace maybe these things right here. I gotta go steal some parts off of my dad's Jeep because we ripped ours off to get painted. So let's go rip those off and we'll do some more installs.
The next thing that we tackled as well, and something that we've never tackled on this channel, was a set of the color matched mirrors. Now on Ryan's Jeep, on my Jeep, on my dad's Jeep, we felt that a set of color matched mirrors might have been too much. It might be a little bit too much color matching, but the cool thing with our Jeep and this build is that there's never too much color matching on a 41 that supposedly back in the day, everything would have been sprayed out in that color. Now the cool thing with these mirrors is that they really do make a dramatic difference, and Ryan and I were both pleasantly surprised at how cool this looked on the Jeep.
Synopsis of the mirror install, they look cool. I think the only thing, like we always wheel with our doors off, so we don't really have the mirrors on to get scraped up, but these would get scraped up, but they look sick. I've seen them on high altitudes. I've never seen them in a color like this though. Like more of like a flat, like kind of military color. But it's neat because this is probably the largest chunk of a black plastic that you'd have on the door, and we just turned it into color match. So I can't wait to see what this looks like with everything else. These are gonna go soon. Those are going soon, everything's.
Now it's only 3 bolts to remove the mirror, as well as potentially a factory wiring connector. And then you do have to pop the glass out, which we were a little bit nervous to do because we had never done it on this model year. But in fact, it was very simple. Even if you've got a connector, it is not hard to do at all. Back in the day, I don't even think most of these Jeeps had mirrors because they weren't really looking back. They were just looking to see. They weren't running into a tree, an embankment, a ditch. They were just trying to go forward. So the mirrors weren't really necessary, and if they would have been painted the same way the Jeep was. But a dramatic change for the side of this Jeep, and we're just so happy with how that turned out. Next up to bat to really make that door completely color matched was adding on a set of color matched door handles for not only the front 2 doors, but also as well the tailgate.
These are like the go-to. These are, I mean, we've got them on all of ours. They change the look of these completely. Yeah, if you're gonna do it, and the install is so quick. Not a lot of people know how quick, like you can do the whole 4-door in like 5 minutes. It's just a matter of keeping them matched up, which actually I didn't know. That was a cool tip that Brian gave us. He said that the actual end caps here have to stay with the appropriate handle because they've got certain magnets in them. So that must be fun when they're going through paint to like try and make sure that they stay together the whole time in the whole paint process. But yeah, They look awesome.
The next one, and probably the most simple, is the covered up keyhole covers. Once you do the door handles, the fender vents, the mirrors, everything else is matched to the Jeep, you really have this stainless steel or chrome door lock keyhole that just stands out. It's the only thing on the door that you see. So we covered it up, and it's a great name for this line that he has, but those are so simple, and you can get those in not only factory colors like we did in 41, but also an accent color or an accent hydro dip. So a really nice option, and something that, yeah, if you've got a Jeep like this, just click them on. They look so much better, and it does protect the keyhole cover if you're in the winter, if you're in the snow and salt. Pull that off, and now you can actually use your key instead of it freezing up like that. But yeah, a super quick one and something to just completely tie in the rest of the door.
Well, let's open up this box here as part of this color matched video. I gotta be honest, I already opened part of this up, but you guys are gonna be really surprised at what we did. Check it out. Color matched halogen taillights. Most people would say, why didn't you go with the LEDs, the Oracles, something else? Well, we have some ideas with this Jeep, and part of it kind of stays with that OEM look, the original style. And there was just something special about the factory halogen light with the built-in reflector on the side here. I just think it looked more original, right? It looked more original to the build. I'm gonna wipe it off here because I got my fingerprints all over it. But the way that they color match these, we saw some down at Distinction Applied that were actually just LED ones, and they just look insane. So they actually take the entire thing and sand it. And I was kind of impressed too, because they even sand all of the glass on it, and then they clear coat it and buff it. So this just is going to look crazy. We already mocked it up off camera, and it just looks insane. So why don't we throw one of these on, because this Jeep has not had taillights in 4 weeks. All right, moment of truth. Got it connected here. Look at that. I know we're probably gonna get some grief about it, and I know Brian was even thinking, why the heck am I paint matching a halogen? Normally everyone upgrades from a halogen, but there's just something about, I would say even the halogen headlights too, that just, it works with this build. Like that's the whole point of that. Like we wanted to make it look, I don't know, I think there's like an overkill point where you can try and make it look retro, but it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like we could have done some crazy custom lights in the front and rear, but it just, I feel like this is what it would have had stock, and you would have just seen like the red on the back and then a little reflector on the side of the Jeep, but then the rest would have been body color. That's what we tried to do with this, and yeah, I'm always amazed by their work. At first I was like, why the heck are they sanding like the front of this, but then they smoothed it out and clear coated it, and it looks, yeah, well, I'll let you guys be the judge, but I think everything on this Jeep is just really coming together.
There was one more piece to add on the back corner of this Jeep, and that was a color matched fuel door. In our case, we wanted to remove as much of that flat black as possible and really complete the 41 look along the back corner. So we decided to go with the Jeep branded 41 color matched fuel door, which these are such a simple installation, and they look so much better. It actually covers up that gas cap. It gives us a nice little accent on the inside with the actual Willys Jeep, and then just ties in the color throughout. Like we could have just left it as an open filler neck, but it's kind of neat because the original Willys, you know where the fuel tank was? It was actually under the driver's seat. When I say under it, it was right here. Like it's crazy. It's very safe, you know, putting a fuel tank right underneath your seat. But yeah, we got a little piece for this. Maybe we should put it on this episode.
I think we should.
I think we should put that one on here. Yeah, let's grab it and we'll put it on. Yeah, so I think every video we're gonna probably, the plan is at least to add maybe at least one decal, Ryan, if not like a grouping of decals that looks right. But you wanna see the one for this?
Yeah. Gas.
Yeah. So let's see where it fits. I mean, I got it in 2-inch, but this is the exact font. We actually got it from, this guy has been creating the stencils and decals since 1972. We'll tag his down below. I can't think of the name. It's like militarystencils.com. You enter everything in and you get it perfect. So this is super cool. But where do you think we ought to put it, Ryan?
Where would they originally go?
It depends on the vehicle, but I don't know. That doesn't look bad. But right here,
Where's it going to be with the flares?
the flares would, yeah, the flares would, I think up there is our
I think up there's
solution.
the best spot.
Right, like that. And if it doesn't, we can always, yep, that's it. Boy, I hate doing decals. Good thing I have like 70 more over there to do, Ryan. First decal out of a lot more to go, but did we do it okay? It looks good. The next one on this Jeep is something that took a lot of time to think about how we wanted to do it, how to make it historically accurate, and also throw in a bit of our flair into this build. Said, hey, could you match this up and maybe change some of these colors on not only our trail rated badge, but our Jeep factory badge? Dude, I freaking love them. Like, so do we give the little history bit here? Because this is why. So originally in 1941, when Willys rolled these out of the assembly line, you would have seen blue drab hood logos. So the hood logos would have said like W20 and then whatever the serial number was on the hood. Jeep did a fantastic job on their 4xe concept because they put the blue drab on the side hood logo. We wanted to incorporate that into something that would have came factory on this Wrangler. Now we don't know the blue drab exact paint code, and if you do, it's 70, 80 years old, but we incorporated Anvil, which is the closest to blue drab that we could find into our trail rated and Jeep badges. And at first Brian was like, man, that's kind of an interesting combo, but look at how cool it looks together. The reasoning they used the blue drab is because when you would use black and white photos, when you would take aerial photography of these Jeeps, the blue drab would not contrast with the paint color. Like white, we've thrown some white decals over there, it really contrasts and you could pick up units and different things like that. Blue drab fades in. So that's what would have been used on this from 1941. And what we're trying to do is incorporate a bit of the history with our modern flair and then give it onto this build. It's cooler than I could have ever imagined here. It's just awesome, especially going from that to that. But before we get into the full reveal outside of doing a walk around of this Jeep, we wanted to introduce a new segment of this build, the hero of the video. And this one comes from one of our viewers all the way out in Ohio, and he wanted to honor his 100-year-old grandfather, who is a Purple Heart World War II veteran. His name is Carl, and he was a waist gunner on a B-24 Liberator called Little Lulu. Now, this is such a cool story because he actually sent us the nose art of this plane, which we do plan on incorporating into this build. But one of the things that I was so humbled by is that they showed the beginning picture of the nose art, which just had Little Lulu, and every time they ran a mission, they put a lollipop or painted one on because that was a cartoon character and apparently what was popular with her in the show. At the end of it, their entire front end of the nose was coated in lollipops. So his grandfather actually flew close to 50 missions in this plane, many over Ploesti, which was an infamous oil refinery in Romania, as well as Vienna, where he received his Purple Heart by getting hit by anti-air. It's like emotional for me to read, dude. It's hard. I mean, this stuff, these are like, this is why we're doing this. And you keep this in, but it's just super emotional for me to read. But Carl's a true hero. And he's still alive to this day, but this is why we're doing this kind of thing. So that's our first hero of the video. I don't know how much I can, these are gonna be hard for me to get through. I'll try and get through them, but it's a lot of these guys, you know, some of the other ones like don't make it home. You know, that's the hard part. Boy, oh boy, they choke you up to read. So let's go outside and we're gonna show the Jeep off. Well guys, we got the Jeep outside and this is kind of more of the video you are used to on this channel, a build walk around or the walk around of everything that we've done to this Jeep. Now, we had some obligations with Brian. We have some really cool content we're producing, and we weren't able to show the full installations of all these products, but do not worry, because on the Distinction Applied channel, which we will tag down below, you can see me and Ryan on that channel, and I'll be installing all of these parts, the entire thorough way done. So if you guys want to check out any of that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps support us, it supports Distinction Applied, and it's gonna be really cool to see what we do on there as well. But let's do a walk around of this Jeep. We talked about everything inside, what we did. The grill, that's the first one. That's the one that I was the most skeptical about. At first, I was not sure I was going to like it. In fact, I was quite skeptical of it. I do like a little bit of the accents that are on a factory grill, and I think it gives it a bit of a breakup. However, with the theme of this Jeep, with the build that we're doing, and then seeing it with everything else done, I really started to like it. In the beginning, I didn't really like it as much, but I think with the theme of this, and then once these go, it's really gonna tie in well and give us a nice accent piece to the front, especially with the LED grill lights up here as well. But yeah, that was the first one. And then they flowed right into, of course, this. So Ryan, we'll just walk around the side because we did it in order inside, but here, yeah, we got the hood latches. Those just blend right into place. The coolest thing, I don't know, what's my favorite part of this? I think I'm between two, but we'll go through them. But one of my favorites, one of the top two, the wood grain on the hood. I was kind of just so excited that sometimes when my dreams or the visions of a build can come to life in a cool way that isn't like so custom you're not able to do it, that's what I get most excited about. So using an existing product that he has, the covered up windshield bumpers, which are awesome, we have them on all of our Jeeps, and doing it in wood grain just tied it in so well. And then the cowl panel, yeah, that's a must have. We always swap the cowl panel out here. And when you're actually looking at the side profile of this Jeep, especially once we have the fenders done, you're gonna be able to really be able to tie that in. Fender vents on the side, a subtle little Q. We're actually thinking about kind of doing one of those bomber, like the nose art planes ones right in here as those decals. I've seen some that have the mouth right here, like a tiger or something like that. But on the sides, dude, probably top two. This is my second parts, trail rated badge and that Jeep badge there. Those took a lot of thought into it. I know it doesn't look like there's a lot of thought into it, but it really has a lot of historical presence there. And I think the more that we talked about it in the video, the more I was thrilled to see it in person. But that flows right through the door, right? Color matched mirrors. I haven't seen these done before. They're a really awesome way to tie it in. And then with our build, it really flows really well with it. I do enjoy the way that these look. I don't know if it'll be too much on my Jeep. I'm kind of thinking it might be, and especially on yours. I don't know. I mean, but on this Jeep, it looks perfect. Everything has to be olive drab. Everything has to be 41. And a lot of people are going to give us grief because they say the original 41 was all like a flat, like matte. It wasn't gloss like this, but we're working with what we have. But then we got the door handles added and the covered up panels. So the door handles here and the covered up keyhole covers, those are like a perfect combo, because if you don't have these on, look at that. I mean, it's the only thing on the whole side of the Jeep that's actually chrome besides a little bit of the lug nuts. But these snap on and do a great job of protecting that. And then the door handles, super clean, super functional there. I'm loving the way that those turned out. But one of the coolest one, maybe I have three parts here that I like. The halogen taillights. These turned out cooler than I could have ever imagined. Reflectors on the side, reflectors around the border here, and just such a cool way to tie it in. I love, love, love the way that those turned out. I don't know if I can express how much I really enjoyed that. I think it's a cool way to tie in the heritage, tie in the color match, but then still get the factory reflectors on the side, still get the factory reflectors back here. Just a super, super cool way to do it. Tailgate. So we got the tailgate handle there too. That's the same as the sides. Other taillight here. And then the last thing that we installed was the fuel door. So we actually put on the Jeep fuel door here, and that was the first decal. And I like hate doing decals. I'm just such a perfectionist that I always think I'm gonna mess them up or make them just 1 degree, half a degree out of center. But we put the gas decal on here too, which these go on super well, and it's militarystencils.com. The guy's been doing it since 1972. So he started with just doing stencils. So if you were redoing a Jeep, you could spray on the stencil. Now he does decals as well. So if you don't want that permanent location on your original Willys MB, you could do decals. But that's what we did on this, because I don't think I have the gumption to sit here and paint stencils onto the Jeep without messing it up or taking all the clear coat off. But that was going to be the last one on there. Same thing on the driver's side though. So we got color match handles, color match keys, color match mirrors here. Man, this thing, I don't know, I'm just so happy with the way it's already turning out. Now, you guys can be honest and be the judge of it too. The black accents now, they look out of place. I think besides the top is black and some little things like the windshield wiper arms, the fenders just do not, the fenders and the front bumpers, they don't tie into the build as well. So those are probably going to be going here pretty soon. And then let us know in the comments too, what do you think of the Wrangler sticker? That's just a sticker. It all comes off in one piece. I don't know if it looks...
I don't know if it belongs, because the Wrangler...
It wasn't a Wrangler, yeah, and this is a Wrangler now, and it's like, but I don't think... Maybe like a little US flag would be cool, or something like incorporated into this, but I don't... I pulled it off on mine and yours. You know, the biggest thing I wanted to say, we do these kind of walkarounds and stuff, and a lot of people were almost... You know, hey, why are you doing color matching? Color matching doesn't belong on a Jeep. Well, with a Jeep like this, with a specific build, a specific purpose, as well as the installation videos that we're doing, I just think this is right for this Jeep. I do think you can go too far on color matching. And you know, it's funny because I've actually heard Brian talking to customers at a show. He's like the best to talk to when you're talking about what you want to accent on your Jeep, because I've heard him say you can go too far. Like, there is a level or a point of no return with color matching to where there's absolutely no breakup on the Jeep, and that's what we wanted to avoid. But in this Jeep, you can kind of color match it all with the build that we're going for. But once you guys start to see all of our decals, all of that onto it, that's going to be the accent where the base of the Jeep I want you to walk up and see the little details. I want you to go up and actually, you know what, that is color matched. I want it to blend in that much until you walk up to it and get a little bit closer to it. And man, this is exciting because it's, like I said, it's 2025 now that you guys are watching this video, and we're just so excited to be doing this kind of content. You know, we've got both of our Jeeps kind of wrapped up, and this one has been, I would say, it's one of the most exciting builds that I've done, because we're at a point with our channel and our brand that we can really think these through and have everything started right from the beginning and knock this thing off like a checklist, adding some things in while we're doing it, but really dialing it in and making it purpose built.
Today's video is fun because we've got 5 wheels and tires behind us that we will be installing on this Jeep. But before we do, I wanted to get into a little bit more of the thought process of what we chose, how we listened to you, and why we ultimately went with what we did. So back in the day when Willys was producing these vehicles, they had to meet stringent requirements. They couldn't be over a certain width, and they couldn't be over a certain height or length on there. There were very specific requirements from the US government. And when we look at the wheels and tires, you could kind of tell that these were purpose built. So on the wheels back in the day, they were a 5-lug, and they had a larger hub that was coming out through there from different styles of axles that they had under these vehicles. They were all painted to match the Jeep. And then the tires were tall and skinny. They were very skinny, probably about, I think they were like 10.6 or something. They were 6 inches wide. So they really weren't that wide on those original Jeeps. And don't quote me because I'm just going off of what I have in my head. And when we tried to recreate this, there was a couple things that we wanted to do. We didn't want wheels that had slots into it. If you guys saw the 41 4xe edition, it's awesome. The wheels look great, but those wheels didn't have slots in them back in the day when these were being produced. And I can only imagine Jeep had to do that to meet cooling requirements for the brakes or some sort of other safety requirement. When we looked at the wheel, we just had to find something that met the requirement that we had, which was to look vintage, to be the right color, hopefully, and then also to kind of match up with the style we were going with. So I picked up the phone, I called Ben at B&M Off-Road, our boys who have absolutely hooked us up and really worked with us for all of our Jeeps that we have wheels and tires on. And I said, hey Ben, I've locked it down. I want to get the Black Rhino solid wheel. And he's like, cool, let me search that. He types it in, he's like, hey, there's a huge problem with these. I can get 4 silver and maybe 1 white wheel. And I was like, really? You know what I mean? Like, you're the wheel and tire guy. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, that's from multiple states pulling the inventory from. So I was like, okay, well, that becomes kind of a problem because we can't have 4 silver wheels and 1 white wheel, but yeah, let's do it. Let's order them, pick them up, because I know that when Ben tells me these things are gonna be back ordered, they're probably near impossible to find because he can get anything. When wheels like this go out of stock, this is not probably the most popular wheel. It's for a specific style of build. It takes the manufacturers quite a decent amount of time to actually cast a new batch, get them powder coated, and then ship them over here. So yeah, I don't think if we wouldn't have pulled the trigger, we wouldn't have got these. The biggest problem though is that we had 4 in silver and 1 in white. So after that, we ordered them and we had them shipped not to our address, not to the shop where they could get tires, but 1,000 miles away down to Florida. We had 5 brand new wheels that were a couple different colors when they ended up at Brian's doorstep at Distinction Applied. And the guys down there, they'll do wheels, but wheels are a pain in the butt to color match and paint. And as we were down at Distinction Applied in Florida, we got to see some of the process of kind of buffing and the final wet sanding of these wheels. And boy, it's a process to do them. To make them perfect and get them to look the way that we wanted, they nailed it out of the park. And once they made it back, we had to make the decision on the tires. Another hard thing, because it would have been very easy for me to say, let's just throw a 35 by 12.5 17 on there. That's the easy tire. They make them in any sort of color and flavor that you want, but that doesn't match the build. So I made things more difficult for myself, more difficult for Ben, and I said, why don't we do a tall, skinny tire? And I believe they ended up with a 255 70-17. Once again, this had to be the rarest tire in the country because they don't really make tall, skinny tires for Jeeps anymore. Everyone wants wide. So I call Ben and I'm like, hey, how about this tire? And he's like, you gotta be kidding me. Another difficult thing. I'll find it. I got you. Well, these came from the sunny state of Oregon. The tires had to be shipped in from the warehouse from Oregon, and they are a Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT. So an all-terrain tire with the snowflake rating, same tire we're running on Ryan's Jeep, and we've had fantastic results with it. So all said and done, what I'm trying to tell you guys is that the wheels and tires that we have sitting behind us have probably been a 2-month process to get them completely done and sitting right here in our shop. Without further ado, I think it's time we throw these things on. What do you say? Let's get started. Check these bad boys out here. all 5 of them mounted and balanced, the fully custom painted 41 clear coat on the center cap, and then Brian and his team even took it a step further. I didn't even know they did this. They paint matched the Allen key head screws for these. I mean, these things look incredible. I mean, with the backdrop here with the wood, but so they're 17 by 9.5. That's the only size they offer these in. I believe these are like a -10 or -18 offset, so they should sit pretty square with our Fender Flares, which those aren't gonna last too much longer anyways. But the tires on this, so these are a 255/85 17. I was a little bit mistaken. Check out the width range of that. So we are looking at, kind of run it from the outside. I mean, this is rough. Maybe 10.5 sidewall to sidewall, 11 at most. Very narrow, tall and skinny. And these range at about a 35-inch tall. Inflated, so Ryan, you might be able to see that. Right about there. Maybe about 34.5. You guys be the judge on the interwebs, but these are, everything runs a little bit different than the exact size that they're listed. But these are a Load Range E Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT, made in the USA, and I think they're gonna be fantastic. The only thing with these, they're a Load Range E, meaning that they are for a heavier weight. They don't offer this size tire in a Load Range C, which I would have wanted, seeing that our Jeep is lighter. So what we'll have to do is we will adjust the tire pressure in this to make it ride smooth. But the one benefit is that the sidewalls are extremely beefy, and these tires shouldn't wear out too quick. But just for reference, Ryan, here's the 13.5-inch wide Mickey Thompson compared to that. So, I mean, this is 13.5, so yours is 1 inch more narrow than this. You have a 12.5, but the width difference is insane. But that's exactly what we were looking for. We didn't want something that was crazy protruding. It wouldn't match the build theme. And then secondly, Ryan and I are really enjoying the ride quality of this Jeep. I mean, it rides fantastic, and as soon as you go with wider tires, they have a tendency to follow the road more. So anytime you increase the width of the tire, it follows the road, meaning that you get kind of pulled in, you get pulled around. These narrow tires have a better ability to not get sucked into road issues, and I just think they look fantastic. All right, so we're gonna grab one of these and pull them off onto the Jeep here. Now, we got them balanced down at B&M Off-Road yesterday, and it was funny because one of our fans, actually, he drove from New Jersey to come down and talk to him, and he got to see these in person. He was the first person to see them, and he was able to pick out some wheels and tires for his Jeep too. But we're gonna go ahead and grab one of these. What I like to do when I start off this is just pick the one that has kind of the two least amount of weights on them to do the front tires until we do the first rotation. The insides of the barrels of these are all silver, and then Brian painted the inside of this one because that will probably be our spare, but might not end up being it. But you can see that was the white that was originally on there. So we're also going to lower this down a little bit till we get it at a reasonable height. This is also Will 35's Fit a Stock Sport S, or a Stock Sport. This sucks. I can't see through to see. Normally you can see through to see where the studs are, Ryan. The wheels you can't.
All right.
there's no holes. Here we go. And now,
You gotta show.
you guys, you ready for this? World War II, trench fighting, trench warfare, huge thing. You might look at these and say, spike lug nut, are you kidding me? You know, you're going chrome wheels, which they're already so hard, and they're sharp too. One piece, phew, you know? Pull it off. Let's throw them on. We're gonna do spike lug nuts. I think this is gonna go with the build, so let's see how they look. Can't wait for you trolls that don't watch further than this. It's always the running joke when we go down to Ben's, they're like, yo, we need a set of spike lug nuts to come home with us. I don't know, what do you guys think? We're just messing, but Gorilla lug nuts. So that's one thing Ben wanted to say. We got a set of regulars over there that we're gonna throw on. Gorilla lug nuts, that's pretty much all that they carry down there. And they have sets and sets and sets of everyone. That's why they could just grab us one of these. They feature a lifetime finish guarantee. So like, you know, lug nuts, you get on there with this key, like you get on there, you tighten them down, you torque them down, and they kind of start chipping over the years. They start rusting, whatever. Lifetime guarantee on the Gorilla products and available at B&M. So really neat. He said they've been great with the warranties, but I never knew about that. But if these ever start to fade on the regular ones, we can just take them back and get some new ones. Now let's put the regular lug nuts on, because we were just joking, but maybe I'll throw these on Ryan's Jeep for fun one day. Start them a few threads, then you can give them a little bit with one of these. And then once it's on the ground, we'll torque everything down. But yeah, and they're not like, if you had Extreme Recon fender extensions, Brian, you have to get a shot from the top down. They're not poking out. Crazy. These are sport fenders.
Yeah.
Let's see. I want to see what they look like. That's going to look good. I think all 5 of them It already like completely changes the look of the front of the Jeep already. Yeah, you know, guys, we like the flat finish on the 41 4xe wheels, but everything we have going on gloss, I just think gloss looks better in the wheels so it matches perfectly. I don't know. And yeah, it's gonna get beat up more, but I think this matching the body color looks 10 times better. Guys, this isn't a permanent solution for the spare tire. We're just gonna use a little spacer bracket to get this kind of sit up so it runs with the stock bumper. We have some really cool plans, but this is a temporary fix to get this just up in the air a little bit, and that's about it. Dude, I mean, so we have plans with the fenders, right? Because some people are gonna be like, yeah, if you take that wheeling, you like, look at the clearance there. I mean, that's not even a full hand, but the height of the Jeep, it does look kind of lifted now. I mean, the tires obviously picked it up. Of course it is. It's higher, but I don't know. It's almost like the perfect setup. Like when we do what we have planned with the Fender Flares, imagine ripping these off and having that much more clearance in here. That's our goal, is not to lift it. I don't think it needs to be lifted. I think that the way that it looks here, it's easy to get in and out of. It's gonna ride great with these tires. But also the thing that I was gonna say, if you guys are looking at like this style wheel and this tire with your Jeep, if you've an Extreme Recon package or add on those Fender Flare extensions, that would probably cover these tires fine, Ryan. Like there's not much poke is what I'm saying. We are on sport fenders and we might poke an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches in the front when I look down, so not much poke, a clean looking ride. And then what I'm excited for is when we rip these off and the bumpers off, to be able to like look down the side of it and not have that much tire sticking out. That's the goal. And then look at the spare Rhino. That's where you get to see really the classiness of this whole thing. And then I really like the Black Rhino, the fact that they put the name Black Rhino and then did 2 lug nuts and the valve stem kind of like right there. People that want like symmetry, it looks good in my eyes. So we just threw on a quick spare tire bracket, one of those ones that raise it up. Ben and Mike, B&M Off-Road, they carry like hundreds of them in stock just because they're doing so many 35s. The nice thing with going with a 35 that's not a huge tire is that the tailgate doesn't really, like it's not flexing at all. There's not a lot of weight up there. It's a little bit heavier. I'd like to throw one of these on a scale maybe and see how heavy they are, but boy, does it look good. It really ties in all the color match now is what, you know, my dad even said. It flows through the rest of the Jeep. And I think once we have our fenders done the way we are and the bumpers, it's gonna look sick. And then we still have the interior yet to do, so stay tuned for that. On today's hero of the video, we wanted to honor one of our subscriber, Nick, his grandfather. He was stationed in Italy during World War II. We don't have a ton of information about his grandfather, but we wanted to honor him in a certain way of the build that we're performing behind us. And what we did is we took the photo that Nick sent to us of his grandfather stationed while he was in Italy, and he is sitting in a Willys MB. Now, this is almost a perfect photo because not only is he serving our country, which we're extremely grateful for, but he's sitting in a Jeep. So what can we do to honor Nick and his grandfather and his family sacrifices in our Jeep? Well, we pulled the decal or the painted on image that said Toots or Toots from the actual windshield of his Jeep that he sat in. We cleaned it up, made it high def, and then printed it out here in 3M graphic vinyl that we can install onto our Jeep. All right, guys, so the only place we really thought was fitting would be to put it on the windshield frame. Unfortunately, you don't have much real estate on these new Jeeps, but we do have some on this upper cowl panel. What do you think about like right there, Ryan? You probably can't see because my arm is completely in the way, but I'm gonna like roll it down. What do you think about like right there, Ryan?
Yeah.
That looks so cool. You barely see it from the front here, but that's details. All right, guys, so we're throwing on another one here. This one's gonna be pretty cool, and we got a few custom made, so we wanted to put those on today. This one is the Rough Rider logo that we pulled from Teddy Roosevelt Jr.'s Jeep that is photographed in Normandy in 1944. Now, Teddy Roosevelt Jr. served in World War I and World War II, and from some articles, it claims that he was the forgotten Roosevelt because he wasn't as notorious as the first Teddy Roosevelt or Franklin Roosevelt, FDR, and we wanted to put this on just to kind of commemorate him. He served in both world wars, and we're gonna throw this on the windshield because this is a badass logo. Rough Rider on a Jeep, and we're gonna put it on this Jeep over on that side of the windshield. All right, guys, so we didn't get a chance to do this one on the most recent video for our first hero of the video. This is after Little Lulu, the plane of the veteran that was in that video. So we wanted to put this on the back here. I think a nice spot right here in the back corner is kind of perfect for it, but once again, pulled this directly from the image and had it cut. So I think right here is gonna be, I think that's gonna be the spot right here. It's cool because it's like the art too, you know?
It's the art that would have came from these guys. And the other thing, it was funny, I actually read, like, I've been reading the booklet where all the factory logos and like gas and the stars and all that go, and they actually have a segment on units or writing imagery art, and it says, in order to improve company morale, but it has to be approved by like the person in charge. So Dad's got to approve all of it over there. But yeah, they have a section in there. So like artwork like this, that's why you see it on planes and that, but it did have to be approved because some of it got pretty wild looking at some of those like planes and the nose art. And so, but yeah, these look really cool on here. So one thing with the narrow tires that I really wanted was to make sure that it still rode and drove very nicely. And that was the biggest thing. When you put on wider tires, it tends to wander with the road. It's kind of all over the place sometimes. And it's not like it's the worst thing, it's just, it doesn't drive like a stock Jeep, and we were really liking the way that this drove. So, I mean, right away, I still have plenty of power with the power steering. That's the biggest thing, is when you put on bigger wheels and tires like my 40s, you're fighting to turn this thing. With the narrow tires, there's not as much area to turn.
Yeah.
So it's still narrow, like the factory would be, but you still want it to have pep too, you want it to have power. Let's get it up to speed. And we did install the taser too, so we have the taser set up for the right ride or the tire size, as well as the PSI. Now, it's not gonna drive the same as Bridgestone Dual or HT or Nexens, whatever those are. You can feel the tires. You can feel it. You feel a little bit of an all-terrain, but I'm not like, it's still responsive. Like even pulling out of the yard there, it still felt like a responsive Jeep and not just kind of like a bear to try and turn. But I'm going speed limit here, 35, 45, and it's kind of weird because it's like, it's still not touchy, but like it has the same steering characteristics as stock. And I know, yeah, it's still a stock Jeep. It's not a lift kit or whatever, but when you throw on 35 by 12 and a halves, the steering changes. You know, this doesn't feel like the steering has changed. I'm curious to see what the fuel economy looks like too, because we were averaging 22, 23 cruising around. I'm curious to see what this does with a set of 35s, but narrow 35s. So back in the day, these Jeeps would have rolled out of the factory with a solid one-piece tub and a tire that was located offset to the right when you're looking at the back of the Jeep, and then next to it, a jerry can right on the left. The biggest problem though with the history of this is that these new Jeeps are a lot different from a World War II Willys MB. And when I say a lot different, they're pretty much in a completely different category. So the first thing I looked at in the rear bumper was it has to be flat. The rear bumper itself down below was completely flat on the Willys MB, and the only two things it really had was a center pintle hitch and then two bumperettes on the exterior of it. Now, while we didn't opt to go with some of these options, I knew we still wanted to go with a C-channel or a solid rear bumper when it came to the lower portions. Do you want to see the steel, everybody? So this is the steel. That Joe was like, you sure you want to do this thick? This is C6 by 13 C-channel. And the 6 is the outer edge, so the C of this is actually 6 inches from edge to edge, and the 13 means 13 pounds per foot. So this front bumper and rear bumper both weigh about 65-ish pounds. Secondly, I read a lot of comments where they said, when you go to do bumpers, make them C-channel, make them C-channel, make them C-channel, make them C-channel. There was repetitive comments on how to do that. We need to make sure that this can actually carry a spare tire and be offset. Now, how are we gonna do that? Can we attach it to the tailgate? Can we attach it to the bumper? Do we attach it onto a spindle? How do we fabricate this to make it all work and still look good, and then the Jeep can also function? That's a lot of things to kind of check off, but the history of this is to make it look pretty much what it looked like a long time ago. Now the next step is putting it pen to paper, right? So some of those design factors. When we figured out the rear bumper, we decided we didn't want to do the bumperettes. I initially did want to do them. I found a good supplier to put both of those on the left and right side, but after looking at it, just overall, I didn't like the look. I thought it would have looked original, but it just didn't fit what we were going for. And then next up to bat was, let's figure out what we want to do with kind of some different mounting locations on this. So I knew I kind of had an idea to make the back bumper multifaceted and versatile. So we decided to weld in hitch receivers on both the left hand and the right hand side. Now you might ask, why'd you weld those onto the left and right hand side? This is to make this Jeep multi-purpose down the road. So we now have hitch receivers which can accept a wide variety of things such as D-rings, tire mounts, bike racks, vices, anything you can shove into a hitch mount,
we can put on the back of either side of this Jeep. But the biggest thing that did was give me the idea to be able to hold the tire on one of the hitch mounts, particularly the one on the right side. We knew we wanted to change up the way that this Jeep looks depending on how we're using it, and the way we designed the rear bumper is just that. We are able to completely remove our tire carrier, and now we have 2 hitch receivers that we can build a rack for, make custom attachments for, and use the Jeep how we need it. Now that all these ideas are down on pen and paper and we've kind of finalized exactly what we wanted, it was time to make a drive down to Locked and Loaded 4x4. Joe's here. He's got his new locked and loaded Ray-Ban Meta.
Be a bumper.
Yeah, hey, yeah, tell Meta to make us a bumper. So the goal overall, Alex said, let's start with the rear. That's going to be harder, but we wanted to make it so the tire is offset, just like the original Jeeps. How are we going to get this on? How are we going to make it mount? How are we going to make it kind of modular so we can pull the tire off if we want? And there was a lot of thought process, a lot of sketches on, as Joe said, on napkins. That was graphing paper, Joe.
Sorry, it looked like you were at a bar.
I was at a bar, like talking my worries away, my woes away, and drawing this bumper. But we've got it all here. So
It did say Red Robin on the back, though.
it said Red Robin, yeah. Joe and Alex down at Locked and Loaded are not only excited to do this kind of project, but they were eager for us to come down and get started. And when we got down there, we knew we were in the right spot. We could have attempted to do it here. I've got a welder, I've got some tools, but a lot of this heavy duty fabrication really needs to be done by a certified professional, and Alex and Joe both are. And not only that, they've done a lot of this style of fabrication, custom framework, custom jobs like this, to where they know what it needs to be done structurally, what looks good, and then also what's going to be safe on the back of this Jeep. So we get down there and it is time to get started. Right away at the rear bumper, the first thing that we need to do is cut brackets out to actually mount the rear bumper to wherever we're having it go to, because it's nice to just have a piece of C-channel, but now how are we getting it to attach to the actual Jeep? So what's going on here is what Alex created was these side brackets made out of 1/4 inch, and these are actually going to weld onto the C-channel on the back side, on both sides, and he got them to sit perfectly flush with the frame rail. And then the bottom side, he made some plates for as well. So we'll have it tying in here and tying it in underneath and be able to weld that completely onto the C-channel, but still be able to remove the bumper. So pretty trick stuff, and yeah, getting it done here at Locked and Loaded. Yeah, I think it's just something more about the simplicity of this is what I'm really enjoying, and one of the key takeaways is just the fact that, I don't know, you just don't see this anymore. You know, everything like we have on our Jeeps, Ryan, we've got Moto-Belt, Crusher, front and rear. The bumpers are beautiful. They're works of art, you know, and it's awesome, but I also feel like there's kind of a level of simplicity to these that if you ding this, dent it, or if you can dent this bumper, I'll be thoroughly impressed. And then the fact of the matter is it's C-channel, right? Like any steel shop, pretty much anywhere in the country, you can pick it up. So, and then I'll say this before we got to a fun point, was we even welded on the hitch receivers. I was thinking like in it. You're like right there. Now it has to be outside the frame rails, of course, wherever we decide to put it. And then I'm assuming we probably will have it like, so the edge of that bracket might be past this. So it might be out a little bit wider, but piece of 2x2 goes in here. Those brackets get welded onto it. And then the 2x2 sits straight up. It's got a pivot point right here with the barns, and then it goes down off to the side of the vehicle. The only thing I'm concerned about is like this spacing of this piece, because the tailgate can't hit it, like this edge. So when this is in the 2x2, it almost has to like sit like, well, but it's gonna sit flush. I guess the only thing with this is.
So then you want this there up against this?
Yeah,
okay,
close as we can. What do you think about that? And then
That's
just
fine.
burning it in, or maybe leave it a little bit. So
I mean, I just
burn.
think the problem we're having is like, I don't care if it's yours, but I don't want to see like overhang, you know, far out overhang. Like, I don't want to see like things added to it.
No, that's what I want.
I want to keep the rectangle theme going.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever we got to do to keep this exact rectangle and, you know, put things inside it or whatever, inside's fine, inside this perimeter. But I don't want to like.
No, I agree. All right, so a little bit of design issue on my part. When I designed these brackets up, I used the factory hitch height on my Wrangler, which sits a few inches lower than the C-channel we're doing. So we've actually changed it, and instead of sitting vertically like that, it's gonna sit sideways. The bushing is going to be welded on, and then the piece of square stock is going to go over horizontally and then up to wherever location we want it. And that way, what we just talked about too, Alex said, when we go to pick the tire back up, it can kind of just set on that too. So we don't have to really dial it in. You can just have it set on a Delrin bushing or a piece that's on there, and that's it. So I think this is going to work better. This is going to be a better solution. Luckily, they have the programmer and everything here to cut it so we can get pieces on the fly and don't have to stop completely, because that wouldn't be fun. All right, so Joe's getting it kind of set up there to do a 45-degree cut on the edge. Joe and Alex holding it to do a 45-degree cut on the edges of the bumpers. That's, I gotta go out and look at the Jeep and see if it was like that from factory, but we kind of like the look better. I think it's gonna make it look a little bit more unique and also just cleans up the edges a little bit from being a flat C channel. And I say it this quickly, this was a very long process because everything is so ungodly heavy duty on these bumpers. So we got all that cut out and we go to put all the bolts on and get this thing final kind of mounted up onto the Jeep now that it's welded. And there was one issue that we ran into. When you're custom fabricating, you can only think of so much and you can only do so much. There are limitations to what can be done and what will work. One of those things was the upper mounting bolt for both sides of the rear bumper. Ryan cut to the shot of me trying to tighten this because an eighth of a turn tightening it would probably be a generous assumption as how far. And this bolt was like 3 inches long.
Who designed this?
Yeah, who designed these bumpers? Now, that's what you're gonna have when you're fabricating. There's only certain ways to be able to make a hitch receiver work, go around the frame, not hit the body mount, and then also still be able to tighten all the bolts. So one little thing and caveat is that's gonna be a little bit trickier to pull that bolt out, but the rest of them are perfect. In our hindsight, I thought about a little bit of a tool while we were there. Actually, it just showed up at the house, and it's one of these like 15-inch extensions that almost converts to like a bicycle chain, so you can put a ratchet down below and then fit it up into a tight spot and use a socket to tighten it up. So I ordered one, it was like 22 bucks, and it's over at the house now. We're gonna use that to do the final tighten because I'm gonna be honest with you, these are coming off while we get them painted, finished, whatever we're doing with them. So I didn't want to tighten it in all the way just to have it come all the way off. So we have that tool and that problem is solved. All right guys, well, the bumper is on, the hitch receivers are on there, and we got a small section in here. Now for the fun part, gotta put the tire carrier on.
What tire carrier?
The one that we gotta build.
Okay.
So it's gonna be built around this area right here. We got 2 hitch receivers, so we have plenty of room for activities back here. So next up to bat, the tire carrier. The real kind of problem or issues that we had to figure out was a lot of stuff that I did put on pen and paper ahead of time. You know, it's really tricky to try and mount a spare tire offset on a tailgate and then actually be able to open it, because as soon as you would try and open it, it would have contacted our taillight and then the tub pretty quickly after. I guarantee you if we offset it on the tailgate and then went to open it, it probably wouldn't open about a foot until it hit that. The next problem, so mounting this offset, you can't block the taillight. We didn't want to block the right-hand side taillight because then you wouldn't be able to see if we're braking, turning, etc. So we had to mount it over to the far enough to the right where we could still see the taillight. And then the third thing was, how high do we mount this? And Alex actually made a fantastic point. He said, what we're going to try and do is with that wheel is match the hub center to the hub, or the hub center to the top of the tailgate here. So the hub center will be here, and then it's just a matter of putting it over far enough so we can still see the taillight, but it's offset enough, and then ultimately it will be able to swing to the right to get out of the way when we want to drop the tailgate. It's going to be slick when it's all done. It's just, Alex, the look over on Alex, there's a lot to do to get it done. I mean,
no, this is the most important part of fabrication. Stand back
and look at it, yeah. But yeah, everyone thinks, he made a comment, it's like, it's not just, yeah, slap a C-channel bumper on there, you think it'll be easy. It's not the worst thing to do, but it's a brand new 2025 Wrangler. It's not like there's specifications for any of this, so these guys are nailing it out of the park. But this is gonna be slick, because what this is gonna do is these new brackets here that we designed and we threw together, they're different than the ones I had. So originally, I had the tire actually mounted from the bushing right over here, and then a pin right up here, and it would just swing to the right. This way, the way that this sits, will allow us, I'm gonna open the tailgate, will allow us to still, look at that. So, still be able to open the tailgate while this is swung down, because before, this bracket came up too high, and we just couldn't get the look we were going for. So I think that's gonna be really a great way to kind of have it. So we got those in, we got the custom brackets that I designed once, and they were a little bit wrong for this build, and then we redesigned. Both of those were kind of put on like this to basically sandwich the inner tire carrier. We ordered a 2-inch DOM bushing from Barnes 4-wheel drive, and we knew that was gonna weld on to part of the tire carrier to let it be able to pivot. So just much like a leaf spring bushing or any weld-on bushing, we had to have a way that this could actually swing down and not just be kind of statically held there. And you also want to put rubber and a bushing sleeve in there, so that way when you're doing this a lot, it doesn't have metal on metal and it's working very smooth. We got that done. We got the tire carrier to slide
slide in. We got both of those plates welded, and then it was time. We used the measurements that we had previously taken to make it offset and also sit at the right location. Joe went over to the chop saw, cut some 2x2 tubing for both the horizontal and the vertical piece. Got all that welded together, mixed with the Moto-built tire mounting plate, which we had to put that on to actually give the tire a way to mount. That was welded on. We had some custom gussets back burned onto that, and then we actually went to AutoZone down the street and got some M14 by 1.5 studs, pushed those through, welded those on the back, so that way it's the same lug nut pattern as the rest of the Jeep, and we can still use our factory lug nuts. When I say this stuff, there is so much, like this video might, I don't know how long it's gonna be, 20, 30 minutes. There is so much more that I'm not telling you how much fabrication goes into it, and it was such a cool process to be a part of a build or a scale like this, to where you can really kind of get it all together and then work it out right there in the moment and not be like, well, that's hat's in for the day. We need to get another part or we can't do it. It was like, no, we're gonna figure it out. So that was the end of the day. We decided to wrap it up because I don't know why we thought we could get all this done in a day, but we did. And we can't get all this done when it's to the quality that Joe and Alex does. So we wrapped it up. And then to the next morning, we walk in and we were pleasantly surprised to see how much progress they had made on the tire carrier. We got a lot done, or Alex did, kind of off camera here. He actually incorporated some more gussets into the tire carrier, capped off, looks like capped off both sides of the tubing, and is just putting a final gusset for the actual wheel mounting surface there. But he even took the time to put Dirt Road CRED's logo into it. So he cut that out on the plasma table, and it looks so cool. So that's like an added touch like that they threw in there, and it's, so when that gets powder coated, well, maybe we'll put like a different color piece of steel or something behind it so it like shows through. That's really neat, because you should be able to see that too, I'd imagine, where the tire, you see a little bit of it.
Yeah, I did. I measured, so it does stick out below the tire. You can see it.
That'd be cool. That's going to be really cool. Thanks for that, Alex. That's awesome. That's an added touch, but look at those. Look at those dimes right there rolling across. That's still toasty. I don't want to touch it. So the tire's on. You can still see the logo. Those gussets were burned in. There was one last gusset to put up top at the tire carrier location. And what a gusset does, it just gives more strength and more surface area for these two to pull opposing forces to. So we added a custom gusset in there with our logo. And then, lo and behold, after all this fabricating, all this customness, it was time to install it. Yeah, we're gonna use your bolt with a washer. What do you think? I think it'll be good until you give me the cost of the cost of one bolt, huh? Just gotta tighten this up. And we got pins too. We're gonna try two different style of pins, Alex. I got two styles. One is like one is like a quick release kind of job. And then one is like a zinc coated, so I don't know. This one might be a little bit nicer.
Whatever works, stick it in there.
Don't mind if I do. Is this still hot? In case the audience was wondering, it's still hot. Down a little bit, down a little bit. Yeah, check it out. I don't want to touch it because you just burned yourself.
There it is. Let's throw a tire on it.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's throw a tire on it. Offset custom. It's kind of trick when it's all like bolted up though. It's like, okay, like that's pretty. It's definitely offset. Hey, you want to pull this out?
Okay.
I think that'll get. Drop it right on Ryan's camera bag. Now let's see, moment of truth. Will it fully open?
It's fully open.
Look at that, Ryan. Fully open, not touching. It works. That'll definitely look cool at the mall parking lot when I open this up like this.
Hopefully no one's parked next to you.
Right. But there was one issue we ran into, and we noticed it pretty quickly, and we foresaw some of these issues happening. Having anything in a hitch receiver, you know, you guys have hauled trailers, you have anything in your hitch receiver, it tends to rock. There's tolerances in there. It can move around, it can shake a little bit. With the weight being so far to the middle, it was kind of tilting. So the tire carrier was tilting, and it wasn't from their fabrication, from them being level. It was the fact that this was in a hitch receiver and all the weight was going to one side. But Joe was like, this is just not, he's just like, this is just not Like, we're not letting it roll out like this. It's gotta be refined and perfect. And initially we were talking and he's like, we got to put some sort of bracket in here to actually hold the weight of the tire carrier and maybe be able to let it rest on there. And initially when he said it, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to weld something into the middle where it's just so open and bare, because when we have the tire off, I just want it to kind of be smooth. We talked about it, we looked at it, and he came up with an idea to cut some more 2x2, cut 2 more custom plates on the plasma table, and almost make it like a little fork like this so the tire carrier could be captured inside of it, and that was all the difference that it needed. As soon as we flipped it down and let it drop into there, not only did it hold it front to back so it couldn't move, but it also held it from dropping down any further. We still have that hitch pin anti-rattle coming in, and that's gonna make it even better, but this was just the final touch to this that really made the tire carrier work and function as we wanted it to. There was just one last thing, and that was to bolt the plate on, or find a place for our license plate to mount. I had so many ideas in my head with this. Do we make a bracket that comes off the top of the C channel to the left, kind of like the J case sat underneath the taillight? Do we use a magnet that maybe just clips on to the back, puts it wherever we need to, and then maybe put a tether to a factory bolt? So we ultimately decided, let's just put it in the center. Let's drill 2 holes through this super thick steel, put the license plate right in the center, and it looks good in our eyes. It's clean, it's symmetrical, and the 6-inch C channel is like the same size as a license plate, so it kind of just sits there exactly the way we want it. Now, without further ado, let's turn this Jeep around here in the shop and show you all this hard work and what it looks like. On today's hero of the video, we are checking out one of our followers' father, who was actually deployed in World War II during 1941. Now, his dad was a P-38 mechanic, and their unit was actually in the Special Forces who crossed Rommel's lines battling in Africa. He was always a positive guy, writes our follower, and he said the Luftwaffe bombing was scary, but he didn't have to dig foxholes. So he was kind of trying to be a positive guy and making the best out of his situation. And he said he actually eventually spent time in Italy as the American front advanced, then 2 years in France. So thank you so much for submitting for this hero of the video. And if you guys want to have one of your veterans who served in World War II honored in this channel, be sure to submit it. We will leave all the info down below. All right, well, let's just say the tire carrier is sturdy. I don't think you're getting much more than this. There's no CG. I'm completely sitting on it here, as much as I probably shouldn't be, because there's mud right here and I'm getting it all over my nice pants. But let me climb down and we'll show you how this thing is operational. So we've got everything kind of dialed in. We're already starting to grow some surface rust, so we got to get these things coated ASAP. But look at the offset. Look at the offset to the right there. You got so much more real estate over here to the left. And honestly, I'm sure you guys kind of saw the process, but the way that they smoothed out these edges too, got the hitch receivers in, license plate in the center. But I think the thing you guys are waiting for is, like, how does it look to actually open and close it? So the first thing you have to do is pull the pin here. You got to pull the pin on the back, which we're going to adjust this and probably get a different pin, because this one is not, it's not really wanting to pull out as easy. Well, I say that and it pulls out really easy. It wasn't really wanting to pull out as easy because of a rubberized coating. But once you have the pin pulled out, this is where things get interesting. So it's not as convenient as the normal grocery getter Jeep. You do have to put some force into it, but you just simply push on this side. And once you have it to about there, you can just let it drop. And that's it. Now I have full access. And when you talk about different things as far as clearance, you see where our tolerances were, right? This tailgate still had to be able to clear the top of the hitch mounted bracket, and then also when it's fully opened, not contact the 2x2 there. So a lot of moving pieces with this, and really a lot of technicalities, but I do really like the fact that if we have this off, or say we want to remove it, all I've got to do is basically pull the hitch pin from back here, and now I can slide this carrier out because I can move it around. Slide this out, now we just have a solid bumper. I'll say, if you don't feel like picking up a tire every time you go to open and close this tailgate, it is kind of an issue. So that is one thing I will tell you guys. Like, if you don't want to open something like this up custom, I mean, it turns into, you got to pick up a big tire to put it back. But for our purposes, there really wasn't any other way to do so. And I think, like, when you look at it, Ryan, I'll have you get a shot back here. Like, when you see the tire kind of offset to the right on the vehicle, it does look really, really neat. I mean, when it's on the ground. And then also say I had to change a spare, zip the lug nuts off, and my tire's already on the ground. So now I can just wheel it right to the, say that one gets a flat, I can wheel it right to it, put the spare on here, put it back, and then flip it over. Now, it's not terrible to pick up. It's got some weight to it. But once you get it to about there, this is what we're talking about, Ryan. If you want to see over here the shot, I would go over there and look down this way of it latching in. So like to kind of see, you'll see like what he meant by left to right. So as you're dropping this tire carrier in, this is what Joe meant from like front to back. See how that kind of wants to sit like that? Give it a little bit of a push. And now it drops into place. So that was something that he wanted. He was like, I really want it to sit in there nicely. And it has a little bit of wobble, but it's all from the actual hitch. Once we put the pin back in, like so, it doesn't have, the hitch is the only thing that's wobbling, which kind of stinks, but just the hitch. When we were driving down the highway with this thing, I kept looking out of the rear view and it was sitting very, very solid. But what else are you gonna do? I don't think you could make a cooler bumper than this for the build that we're going for. Yes, it's inconvenient, I would say, Ryan, would you agree?
Yeah.
For me to, if I'm gonna do that all day, like if I'm like going running errands and I need to open the tailgate all day, yeah, it could get old. Then say you know that like, hey, for the next week, we're gonna be doing a lot of stuff, just take the tire off. It just, you take the hitch pin out, pull the tire assembly out, and then you can put it back in when you're done. And now you have just a complete open thing. But yeah, I think it's nailed on this the way that it should be, and I just couldn't be more excited. I think the last thing I wanna do, is because we don't have a camera sticking up here, I'm actually gonna put the original piece back on here. So that little cover for the Black Rhino wheels, and that's gonna be it for the back end. This thing is 100% the most solid piece of steel that I've ever seen. This C-channel here, I believe you could probably use it to like reinforce structures and hold entire roofs and like platforms up with it, because it is so ungodly heavy and thick, but that's what we wanted for a build like this. It's not overkill. You get aftermarket bumpers and they start weighing the same as this, but with this, we wanted to make it as strong as possible, and kind of fitting the theme of the military kind of rebuild was making something that's very robust and that's going to last. We do need to get this thing powder coated, so that's a huge thing. We're gonna go drop it off. We got a couple other things to drop off at powder coat, but we gotta get this thing to powder coat because it's already starting some surface rust, and then finish it off in the color of our choice, which we will reveal to you once we have all of the bumpers done. AKA, we will also be doing something on the front bumper. If you didn't notice during the beginning of the video, there's no bumper on that currently, but there is a winch. Follow and stay tuned for the front bumper build because that is just as cool as the back one. Maybe not as cool because it doesn't have a drop down tire carrier, but still very, very cool. I want to end this video with a massive thank you to Joe and Alex down at Locked and Loaded. They are not only our great friends, but they are probably some of the most skilled fabricators and just experts in Jeep fabrication, bumpers, building, whatever you need them to do, they can pull it off. And I'm just so lucky, Ryan and I are so lucky to be able to call them friends of ours. So if you guys are looking to get work done like this, now I don't know how many of these custom bumpers they want to do, because I talked to Joe this morning and he said, do we really want to make more for other people, or do you want to just have them just for this build specifically? But if you want work done and you're in the area or even out of the area, definitely reach out to them and tell them we sent you. And before we let you go, we got our decal of the video. Let's throw it on to the Jeep. All right, guys, so we're gonna add a decal to the back tailgate. This is actually somewhere I didn't know it was, but with the militarystencils.com, they give you diagrams, and they actually said a 6-inch star could go on the back tailgate, kind of right on the left-hand side of the tailgate and not on the bumper. So we're gonna put this one here. I got a little tiny bubble there, which I'm gonna fix too. There's our decal of the video. I'm not as happy because I got a bubble in it, but to start off on this front bumper, obviously we had to do some research on the history of the front end of the Willys MB. What the sizing looked like, what it actually had to kind of characteristically look like, and then also what we wanted ours to look like while trying to replicate the history, but once again, be able to make it fit on a 2025 Jeep Wrangler. Now back in the day, I believe the specification for the front end of that Jeep would have been a 46 or a 48-inch wide C-channel front bumper. Now in ours, we made some modifications to that, but 46 to 48 inches wide was almost as wide as the entire Jeep. Needless to say, 2025, our vehicles are a lot wider than from 1941. Back in the day though, they wouldn't have had a winch unless it was a top mounted hand crank winch, or even like, it was like a rope carrier, they actually spooled rope around, but the entire front end was completely smoothed out.
and the bumper was part of the frame. There were no bracketry, there was a couple little supports, but everything was welded together and there was actually no separated structure. Now in our version of this, we had to take all of this into account. The first problem is that the Jeep was significantly wider in 2025. I'm talking probably 20 to 30 inches wider compared to the original. The second thing is unless you guys are crazy enough to do so, we didn't want to cut the front of our frame off. We knew that we wanted to still make sure that this thing could be removed, and we weren't ready to go completely gung-ho and chop the entire front of the frame off. The third thing that we wanted to do was, this would have been different than back in the day, but we wanted to incorporate a winch. We took a lot of time to consider. I was debating back and forth, do we really go for that original look, or do we add a winch to help recover when we are off on the trails, when we take our other Jeeps out? And ultimately it was decided, let's put a winch on this thing. And then that led into a whole nother host of issues. We're now adding on a winch, a C-channel bumper, something that needs to be removable. We're not cutting the frame, and it needs to be able to clear everything. So obviously we shot a lot down at Locked and Loaded 4x4, and we were able to get this thing completely fabricated up. And when I say we, Alex and Joe were the main driving force of fabrication. Those guys are absolutely masters when it comes to metalworks. We talked about a winch there in the intro, so we knew we wanted to put a winch on it. Now the winch on there too, we want to talk about that because there's been a lot of comments. It's a Badlands ZXR 12,000 pound winch. It has steel cable and a roller fair lead, which we do plan on swapping both of those out, but the winch was like 200 bucks on sale at Harbor Freight over Black Friday. And I actually went through a lot of different winch plates to be able to order one that would mount in between the frame rails and also not stick out too far where it was going to affect the C-channel on the front bumper. I eventually landed on an AEV winch plate and we installed it and we got kind of everything mocked up where we wanted to. So we're having a little bit of an issue with the way that this winch, like the AEV plate that I ordered, it like angles the winch. And we can tuck it back like to there, but we need a little bit of a space to space that bumper out. So that should be a good solution. I don't know what you think, but that was a little bit of a hiccup and not really too much of a big ordeal. But we got all that mounted up and everything was looking good. You know, we got the frame horns there with our 8 bolts and we got to talking, you know, how do we do this? Do we drill through the C-channel and kind of just mount bolt heads and go through? Do we try and make it a flush finish? And we landed on a flush finish. When you look back at the original Willys MB, the CJ2As, in fact, everything from the Willys MB up until the JK period, so you're talking 70 plus years, was a C-channel front bumper. Now, it had multiple iterations. Some were welded to the frame, and then afterwards they started bolting them on. But when we looked outside, the TJs that were sitting there, the YJs that were sitting there, you guys recall all of them were either bent C-channel or they were just steel welded to the frame. That was an iconic look for a very long period of the Jeep. And we wanted to keep that iconic look, but we had to figure out how to make it work on the front of our Jeep. Now we landed on the width that we chose because of the width of the factory bumper on the Willys MB, which I want to quote was 46 or 48 inches. And the actual measurements of our 2024 grille are about 46, right around there. So we wanted to make the edge of the bumper land with the edge of the grille. When we chose this, it looks really clean. It doesn't stick out too far, and I think it does flow down pretty nicely. The problem we ran into with C-channel, which we use C6x13, one of the heaviest duty C-channels you can buy, this stuff is almost 3/8 to half an inch at certain points, was that when you put it on, it fits over the frame horns, but now the top of the C-channel would have had to been notched out to go around the winch. The winch was sticking out too far, and it would have had to been notched to sit there flush. Now we had a little bit of back and forth kind of talking about this because in my personal opinion, I wanted the bumper to sit as far back as we could. I didn't want it sticking out that far. I wanted it to go wrap around and be as close to the grille as possible. But after talking about this, there really wasn't any way to keep the C-channel structure and not notch it out without spacing the bumper forward. Now to do that, there was a couple different ways that we thought of being able to do that, but ultimately what was decided was Alex went on the table, he cut some of our 2x2 stock, cut a large hole in the back of both, pushed a stud through a bolt, welded that through a second hole, and what we have here is a bumper that can be removed just like the stock one. He was ingenious of thinking about this because it's spaced out perfectly where we didn't have to notch the C-channel, but then welding in the studs from the backside means that we can take off the nuts on the back, pull the bumper off,
and then push it back on. And the cool part with this is it's the exact same as a stock bumper. After we ultimately decided to space it out, it fits around the winch perfectly. It looks really clean, but then when we went out to look at the CJ2A that he actually has sitting out front, there actually is a little bit of space and a little bit of kind of bracketry right before the front bumper before it's welded on. So this does look the part as well. I wonder how it's gonna hold up off-road. You think it'll be okay?
I'm sure it will be okay.
I'm a little nervous if it holds up off-road. So while we were doing all this, we wanted to jump cut to the back bumper because there was one other thing we had to install. I don't think it's gonna hold up off-road though.
It's definitely not gonna hold up off-road. We should try to pick it up by the tire carrier to see what happens.
You have a forklift to your abilities. So while this is a front bumper video, we did want to make one final touch to the rear bumper, and that was to make it look like the original. So the original, you actually have just like that. You got a jerry can on the back. We didn't use a jerry can in that mount. We could have picked something like that up, but we actually went on Roto Packs made in the USA and picked up 2 of these. Now these are for potable water, not for fuel, but they're 2-gallon Roto Packs, and I don't know, with the olive drab color, I think it's gonna look better. Give it kind of a little bit of modern touch, and then these are a lot more squared off than a jerry can, which matches the bumper and the style we were going for. So
I don't know if this is gonna hold up off-road.
we have all that, but we got to figure out how to put it to the left of the tire. Originally, I was like, why don't we mount something on the tailgate? We can fabricate a bracket that it's sitting there. And I thought to myself, why would we do that when we already have all this structure we can easily weld to? So what we did, and what Alex and Joe did, they took some of our 2x2, cut it down to length. We mocked up exactly where the Rotopack should sit, that they were about an inch or 2 away from the edge of the tire, similar to the factory of a Willys MB, same height as the center hub bore. And then they cut some steel, made a bracket, a gusseted bracket, and then welded. They actually cut part of the Rotopack's mount, cut that, bolted the base plate on, and welded that to it. So if we ever want to take that bracket off, it's never coming off. And also then Alex did something to prove that this thing will be okay off-road. He actually climbed up on the bumper and then stood on the edge of the Rotopack's mount where the 2x2 is welded. He stood on it. It's going to be fine, I think, you know, especially it's only holding 40 pounds of water and a little tire. But we got all that mounted up, put the Rotopacks on, and I want to tell you, I think that was the way to complete the whole rear end look. I know this is a front bumper video, but I think that based upon, we posted a story on Instagram, the amount of likes on that story, you guys just loved it. And we do too. I think it looks perfect. It completes the look. We didn't get to show it to you. And the other thing is too, when we reveal these bumpers, when they're back from powder coat and paint and everything we're doing, we will have some other final touches that we'll show you. So don't worry, we're getting a license plate light and there will be a camera location. But it will come, but there's no point in doing it while it's still raw steel just to unbolt it all. So don't worry, it's coming. Now, like I said, we didn't focus a ton on the front bumper because we had so much going on in the back, but I am ultimately extremely happy at how it turned out. And I think honestly, it's time for us to show you here at the shop what this bumper turned into. On today's Here of the Video, we'd like to honor Jason's grandfather by showing some of the photos that he was able to submit to us. Now, Jason's grandfather, he was able to get his photo album for when he served in the Army Air Corps during World War II on the Western Front. He says from what he's found, he was a mechanic during the war and was also able to take a camera with him, which is extremely vital in the history and the preservation of what these men and women endured during these fights. But what is really cool is that some of these photos too, he actually sent one of us here of him, and it looks like some friends. He is the one driving the Jeep in the photo. So I can actually see a spare tire cover on there, and it's really neat to see that our veterans and our fans are showing kind of what they have of their family members, and to see a glimpse of the history and sacrifices that they made to make this build possible. So thank you for your service, and if you guys have a veteran that you would like us to honor, be sure to send us an email. We will leave everything down below in the description. All right, guys, it is time to reveal these. We're gonna show off what we did on the front bumper, and we are just extremely happy with how these turned out. It is hard to actually make a flush mounted bumper like this and make it all function, work, still be able to be removed and actually look great, which in our opinion, this looks absolutely fantastic and is exactly what we were going for. Now we did bolt up the roller fair lead and the winch hook just for now for aesthetic purposes. This will all be coming off, and we do have some modifications to the winch that we're going to be making as well. So do not worry, that is all going to get changed up. But looking at this, when you look at the front end, this really does complete the look that we were going for. The edge of this is very close to the edge of the front of the 2024 grille and actually doesn't protrude out much further than the edge of the Fender Flare. Now the reason for that is because we are swapping these out, and in fact, after this video, I will be starting to remove all of the factory sport flares and begin test fitting what we're going to be installing. Another note to mention to you guys, these bumpers are not finished. They are in raw steel, they're already starting to get surface rust, and they are going to be professionally finished in a paint powder coat or something that you're gonna have to wait to see the final reveal of, because I think it's gonna be pretty cool once they're all done. But on the front bumper, yeah, extremely happy. I was nervous about seeing these frame horns, Ryan. You can actually see kind of like the edge of them right here. But when we looked at that front bumper on that original Jeep out front, it looks very similar to what this is. Joe even said if we wanted to take a step further, he could cut pieces on the plasma table to weld onto here and kind of make it look like it flows into the frame. But some part of that is like less is more, you know. Then we start adding custom brackets, another bolt hole, another location. I like it the way it looks. I think it looks aggressive. I think it looks the part. And I will tell you, when we were driving it home from Locked and Loaded, everyone was going like this and honking and looking at the Jeep. I think when these are all painted, finished up, and we do have all the decals for them, which we'll show you once we install them, these are going to look perfect. But let's walk around. Let's show you the back quick too, because we didn't actually get to show you guys that on camera. We just took a photo of it. So on the back here, we were able to finish this off and get the roto packs mounted up right on this side of the tire. Now, we wanted to give a little bit of gap here because on the original ones, they had about an inch gap between the jerry can. And in our opinion, like, we're still going for, this is still a 2025 Wrangler. Like, that's the hardest part, is like, we can go as original as we want, but this is still a 2025. It's got a 12.3 wireless Uconnect on there. Like, it's not a old Jeep, so we wanted to incorporate some of the modern. This is not an exact match to this, but I really do think it finished it off. Now this is 2x2 welded on steel onto the back. And what do you think, Ryan? Do you think I can? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Do you think the bumper will hold up off road? I mean, okay. So let's go to right. Here's the edge of it. Here's the edge. Look at me. I'm not holding anything. Do you think it'll hold up? We've got some future plans with these. We got a little bit of things to add on, but the second thing is, like, we want to get this content to you guys as well. So if we take these bumpers, we create them, we get them painted, we get them finished, we get all this, that done, that could be a month or 2 months. And it almost seems like, hey, where's the 41 build? Have you guys stopped? It takes a lot to do this on and off camera to get it done, and we just want to make sure that we're showing you guys what we're doing, how we're doing it, and we're excited to bring you this style of content. So do not worry, we got some final touches for the front bumper. I might tweak the back bumper a little bit on maybe some ease of use, but you got to remember, this is a two-door. It's purpose built for this look, and I'm happy with it. So I think we can flip that tire down as many times as we want, but I might have a little bit of a solution to help out. And I could do it off camera. I think I'm gonna do it off camera, just so my wife can get groceries. And before we close it out, we're gonna throw on another decal of the video. I know this one is the same as the last video, but we've got a spot for it. So why don't I'll go grab a rag, clean off the location, and we'll put this one on. What I did here was trying to make it the same distance here from the top of this to the gas can, so it looks where it should be. So it can go right here. There we go. Another decal. Our Jeep has kind of been sitting on jack stands for about 3 weeks up until this point. There is definitely a lot to do off camera when you're doing a build of this style, and we had to do a lot of test fitting, a lot of trial and error, and then a lot of finish work before we could get the final product that we've got today. We kind of kept the Fender Flares and what we were doing to this Jeep a little bit of a secret. Well, I hope by now the cat's out of the bag. Let's tell you what we went with. So on the Fender Flares, we went with a standard moto-built Fender Flare, both the front and the rear. They are their Crusher Series Fender Flares. They're not the high lines like mine. So mine are about 2 inches higher than these and even more narrow. The Crusher fenders on the JL are a great version because it gives us a little bit more tire coverage. On the rear, we probably have about 4 to 4.5 inches of tire coverage. Same way up front, and it doesn't stick up as high. We wanted more of a flat fender look, and I'll be honest, the closest one we could find to an original like Willys MB would have been an MCE Fender Flare, but they don't make them at all for a JL. This really does match kind of that bent look that the original Willys MB look had, and then going along the side and flowing down. So we decided to order those. We got them in steel, and then we also matched them up with a set of the moto-built aluminum inner fenders. So before we did all the powder coating, all this other fun stuff, I test fit everything. So
The fenders were installed, the inner fenders were installed, everything was test fit in raw finish. That's a crucial step for any of this. We didn't really show much of it because it's very similar to what we did with mine. A lot of cutting, a lot of grinding, some welding, some really nice paint touch-up work, but you want to test fit everything before you drop it off. That way when you get it back and it's a beautifully finished piece, you're not fighting it and scratching up the entire piece. Here they are, guys, our 4 Fender Flares for our 41 build, freshly back from powder coat. What we chose to do, we did actually the same powder coat on all the things that we've got behind us. We did a satin black powder coat. Now, the reason being for that is we did a lot of back and forth. What are we going to match these? Are we going to leave them black? Do we paint them completely green to match the Jeep? What are we going to do? Well, the first thing is we wanted to make sure that these are durable. So they were completely powder coated in a nice satin black by our local shop, completely back from powder coat. And what we decided to do is we're going to paint match the tops and the outer edges of these in the 41 color. Now, we're not going to send them down to Brian at Distinction Applied, even though we would love that because we know these are going to get chipped up on the road. So we actually went to our local store and we're going to go show you the solution here as soon as I pour some out into our paint can there, exactly what we're going to do to these as well as the front bumpers laying there. This is going to be a fun day, and we got the heaters on, we got the mini splits running, we got another heater because we want to make sure these cure really nicely, but these are going to look really cool. But yeah, satin black, I figure that's going to match the frame and the other black accents on the Jeep really well. And then we have inner fenders done too, so we'll install those, but we want to get these painted first. So why don't we get out some paint? So we got our little paint roller, we got our micro paint dish, got 2 rollers here made for the type of paint, Lebanon paint and wallpaper. That's where we went. But here's the custom paint that we got in here. He got us a quart. It's a little bit cold right now. It should be okay, but we're gonna undo that, pop some out and put it into this here, and we'll start doing the fender flares, but I'm gonna do it right here on the ground first. And it's a high gloss too, so when it dries, it'll have a lot of sheen, just like the factory gloss. Isn't that cool? Yeah. And that was only, I wanna say that was 30 bucks for a quart of that. So 30 bucks, roll it on with the roller, see how badly we mess it up. No, I'm just kidding. So we're doing this on the bumpers, we're doing this everywhere. When we get rock chips, inevitably, which we will, I guarantee you it's gonna happen, we have paint. Like, all you gotta do is grab a little brush and touch it up. You know, it's not like, oh shoot, we just had this professionally painted, coated, now we gotta strip it down, take the clear coat off. Like, nah, there's no point to that. Plus, it's like, how close can we get it? It looks so cool. So we're gonna stir it up a little bit here. So this is exterior grade metal paint. Stuff is thick. Pour a little bit in, because honestly, a little bit of this stuff goes a long way, a very long way. I want to, like, the one thing with this is I just want to make sure I don't over roll it and have like splatters all over the place. So why don't we take this over? I'm gonna do 2 coats. So doesn't matter if the first coat's a little bit thin. I don't know. There is a limit of like how much you can do as color matched. But I think this is going to be just a perfect amount. Mind you, this is just the first coat, so it'll be a little bit lighter on here. And we're going to do the outside edge. It's so cool to be able to use local resources like this too. You know what I mean? Like, because we're always going into local places. We're like, yeah, we've got the most interesting thing you're going to hear all day. And they're like, all right, shoot, what is it? You know? Yeah. And it's just cool to have like that local support of like, yeah. Like, yeah, that's awesome. And I show them pictures of the Jeep, and I was like, here's what we're going for, and yeah, there's first coat. Hopefully people steal this idea and are like, I'm gonna get moto-built fenders. Now, the one thing the paint guy said, if you're doing a color like my Jeep, like bikini, can't match it. This is a flat color, no flake in it. Yeah. So you can match this with this exterior grade paint, but on a bikini or something like that, yeah, good luck. And I know Tyler, the JL Adventure, he actually messaged when we posted the Instagram story and was like, man, with the roller, guys? And I was like, yeah, we're your good old boys in PA. We're painting these brand new parts with a paint roller like we're old school. But they match the color. And what we decided to do was paint the exterior of the front bumper, exterior of the rear bumper in the 41 green that we had matched. Yeah, so thought process on this was just to leave the tire carrier black. So we're gonna leave this black too. Just a little bit of tape off. I mean, not like you're gonna see it like crazy. But yeah, leave the tire carrier black just for durability over the years. And then also we're not spraying this stuff on, so I don't know. It would just, it adds another complex element to it. We're gonna grab a little paintbrush and I'll touch up. I think we ought to do these I think they need, yep. Yeah, they gotta do it. That's how an executive decision is made. Everything else is satin black. So when you install it all, the inner fenders, the inside of the fender flares, the inside of the front and rear bumpers, they are all satin black to kind of just flow right into the frame, the suspension, and all the other black components. So we got the inner fenders installed here. These are the same ones that Ryan has on his, the Motobuilt inner fenders. They're the 2-piece. Obviously, we did all the pre-install before we got them powder coated, so that way we had all the rib nuts and everything ready to go. But the goal with this, we could have left these bare aluminum or tried to do them green and work the way down through. We wanted this to kind of just flow right into the suspension, the frame, and all that. So we tried to get it the same color as the frame, and this frame is kind of dirty right now too, so it is very, very close to that. But just to flow downwards and not be too, I don't know, obnoxious in there. We could have tried to do, oh yeah, let's make this green, that green, the frame green, the suspension green. We're not going to get that far. I like this look, so we got the fronts in. The other thing I got to do is I got to rip apart the factory turn signals and just run the wires to the new marker lights and turn signals on the new fenders. But yeah, the fronts are on satin black. We never did them in black before. Mine are in aluminum, yours are in aluminum. It looks clean, you don't even notice it. You know, besides you just see the little stainless steel button heads there. But yeah, I got to put on the rear fenders now and then put another coat on the bumpers and the fenders. So all of that done, right? We got coats of it on here. I was using sockets and different things to actually prop the fender flares up. Then it was time to get them installed. And that's where the entire vision really, I would say, came to life. Getting these fender flares all painted, all prepped. The paint is extremely durable, tough stuff. I couldn't even scratch it off. We had to do one last little thing, and I didn't even show Ryan what we did, but this will make more sense in the future. But Motobuilt includes 2-piece vents to go on the side, and we did those in a color that probably you wouldn't even expect. We had them powder coated in black, but I did white with a gloss red outer piece. So we put those on, and it's a 2-tone white with a gloss red. And as we get further, maybe we'll see some of the decals today, Ryan, why that makes sense. But once this build is done, those exact color scheme colors will make perfect sense. But putting it all on, we didn't really run into too many issues. I custom cut and remade the harnesses for the front turn signal because you use 3/4 little light harnesses on there. Got that installed and then put all the fender flares on. And I would say just the immediate reaction of seeing them all on and seeing them right next to the body and how close the paint was. Bro, the color's perfect. I am so happy the color matches. This is rolled on. Like from the side here, it looks the same. I know some people are gonna say the front tire pokes too much, but in reality, we couldn't make a fender that was 12 inches wide to go out there unless we super custom fab this, and I really just don't think it would have looked right. This, in our eyes, is the perfect setup when it comes to the fender flares, and we're so excited that we were able to use those and get them installed. That local shop nailed the color for us, but yeah, I think it's gonna look insane. What we're about to do now is put on the wheels and tires, and then we gotta pull it out and clean it up a little bit too, because this thing is like so salty. But all right, well, got all the tires on, and now obviously I know what you guys are gonna say. The wheel poke is insane on this. The fenders on an original Jeep were not that wide. They didn't come out very far, and also these tucked in way further. But the problem is they don't really make wheels like this that we could have had custom painted that would have matched this. We do have to tuck that wire up there for the front lights, but those look pretty slick turned on there too. Nice little accent light, and then those are our turn signals too. So if I turn on the 4-ways in here, should flash. So now we got everything kind of set up. I think it's time to put the front bumper on. Guys, we ordered a blackout light from an original World War II Jeep. This is made by Prestalight, and it is made in the USA. So it is wired up too. Maybe I'll have to turn on the Jeep. It's pretty dull, like it doesn't light up too bright. I think I still have to swap the bulb out for a 12 volt instead of a 24 volt, or maybe it's a 6 volt bulb. Actually, it's a 6 volt bulb for those old Jeeps. So I have to swap that out, but yeah, that's what that is a blackout light. A lot of people asked it. A lot of people knew it, so kudos to those that knew what it was, but we figured here was a good spot. The fenders didn't give enough real estate. That's where they originally would have been. They would have been right here, but not enough real estate to mount the bracket, and then that's a lot going on over there, but yeah, these look good. Now, bumpers, that was another deal. So the back bumper, what we decided to do, we'll start with that. Everyone was asking about the license plate lights. We got little bolt lights. So that's a temporary fix. They should last for a while, but they're just little bolt lights that you wire in. We use the taillight harness that we have available on the website too to tie in and get a running light on that. Those look clean, they work, and they make sure that our license plate is now lit up. The back bumper was all flush. We did that in 41, and we left the tire carrier as well as the catch for the tire carrier in black, as well as the actual actual hitch mount for the tire carrier. So that's all just the satin black. And then one last thing is we added on a hitch stabilizer. So that actually screws in inside the hitch, and that really made a difference with any sort of little bit of movement that we had. It's an anti-rattle hitch pin from CRED. So we're gonna put this, yeah, so that'll go in here. And then this is supposed to fit in there, but it won't, because this hitch, our tube is different, but this will at least connect this side. What it does, so that goes inside there. You're supposed to be able to use that, but we won't be able to. This goes in, and then this actually threads in. And what that does is it like since there's a nut in there, it kind of pulls the whole hitch towards it. So see that? So I gotta get that snugged up. You still get a pin for the other side. Now we're gonna cinch that down. Oh! Yeah, look at that, right? Back bumper was completely assembled. Roto packs are on. We now have 2 hitch receivers. And then the front bumper, we got that all the way installed, completely flush up front. You guys might have seen the Groove Fair Lead from Yankum Ropes, a brand new product that we have been able to check out on the channel, and this thing is extremely beefy. We got that on there and then spooled the winch line up under load on my Jeep last night. But I think that's pretty much everything that we did. It was really cool to see it actually come off of jack stands, because after it sits for a long time on jack stands, you guys that have project Jeeps, you know how that goes. You want to just see the dang thing move. And I think without further ado, it's time to walk outside and show you what this Jeep really looks like. All right, guys, today's here are the videos. Don't get at me if it's hard to get through. So this is from a fan, Patrick, and so his father was Sergeant Joseph Boyer in the 90th Infantry Division, 315th Medical Battalion. So he was part of the Tough Hombres. His unit division landed on Utah Beach, fought in Normandy, Ardennes, Saar region, and the Rhineland. Part of the Battle of the Bulge. I mean, just incredible experience. He said his father never really talked about it. So you can kind of tell when some of these guys have really been through stuff because they didn't talk about it. So his father, incredible veteran, but his uncle Harold, younger brother, was part of the 760th Tank Battalion. He died in late February of 1944 in Italy at the Battle of Cassino. He never got to make it home. So in his story, he kind of talked about both his father and his uncle never left the small town of LaGrange, Missouri. They had never been outside their farm and the farm town that they lived in. And for both of them to go overseas to fight, and then his uncle never to make it home, this is what this build is all about. So Patrick, thank you for sending us this in. It's hard for me to read it here in person, but this is an incredible story. And, you know, we would love to honor that. He even talked about maybe putting some GPS coordinates of LaGrange, Missouri on there. We're going to get those coordinates, and they are going to be on this build. And that's to honor your dad and your uncle. So thank you so much for submitting this. If you guys have a hero that you would like us to honor, please send it in, and we would love to share it on our channel. What do you guys think of this Jeep? I cannot express how awesome it turned out. When you see everything like this together in the sun with all the little accents as you walk around it. A gentleman that was actually an Army veteran came up and checked it out while we were at the park here, and he absolutely loved it. So really cool to see just the first public reaction to this as well. But the detail in this Jeep, that's what we're trying to harp on, is just how much we've put into this to make it look the way it does. Now, everything we've got going on, it's all installed. And Ryan and I were just discussing off camera. I know it looks like a ton is done to this Jeep, but still no lift and some pretty friendly parts on here. I think we got a little bit of a discount on the Moto-Built fenders, but we got these installed. We got the wheels and tires. Super happy with how everything here turns out. I might touch up just a couple little things in paint. Like I was looking at this, just some of the edges I got a little bit over on here. I might touch up some of those. The cool thing about using the paint that we did is I can just go around and touch up anything. So when Ryan hits, like Starbucks curbs are really, like they have the big poles out there. When he hits this, I'll be able to just touch it up. Honestly, what do you think would happen if we hit something with this bumper? I think it's just gonna push the damn tree down or push the pole over. Yeah. Like it's so sturdy up here. So the reason we chose this color is it is synonymous with the medical portions of not only the military and wars, but you look at the Red Cross, you look at first aid kits, the red and gloss white is significant color scheme when it comes to that. So that's why we tied it into here, and it will make a ton of sense once we have all the decals installed, because we have a lot of them that are missing all over here. Now, I'm okay at putting on decals, but I am not that good at all. So I've got a great local friend.
we're gonna be doing some decals, and you guys are gonna wanna stay tuned for all of the decals that go into this, because we're probably gonna do a full-length video installing that and just showing some of the process and the history. Walking around back, rear fenders turned out phenomenal, especially with the inside being black. It just kind of gets lost in there. The one thing I did tell to Ryan, we might try and paint match the roto packs, but I might have to get like a plastic paint and sand these down a little bit. It might be tricky, but it's not the exact same color, so something that, we didn't really like as much. Give us your opinions down below. What should we do for a rear view camera? Because we have had a part on order. What's it going on, 3 months? Yeah. Just for a little camera relocation that we thought would work great, but if it's not gonna come in, it's not gonna come in. One other person suggested we get a Gladiator rear camera bezel because it sits on the tailgate flush, and maybe just like drill a small hole right here and have the exterior of the housing matched in 41. So then it would just be over there, still tie in. I have the extension cord and all that. Let us know if you think that would look cool. I'm just so impressed how well the paint matches. I mean, a lot of people were just, I can't believe you're using a roller to do that. But if you do things, you take your time and you have a nice heated shop, you can get this stuff done. We're just doing this stuff, 2 guys in the shop, and my dad comes out and look at the results. You know, I think that's a great way. If you guys are gonna get fenders powder coated and you've got a flat color like this, you can roll it on. Go to your local shop like that and see if they can paint match you some exterior metal grade, and you can always touch it up. So you guys go out wheel, you get scratches on it, you get it dented up, you can just touch it up with a little paintbrush or sand it down to your needs. But let us know down below in the comments what you guys think of this Jeep and what should be our next step, because the next phase of this build, after we do some decals, is going to be the interior, and that's probably just going to be as custom as the outside. We've got a lot of cool parts stacking up, and then I shouldn't say that that's the next step, because yeah, we're going to do the interior, but we've also got some fun tidbits that are going to go underneath. And a tan top. If somebody can find one for a 2-door, my gosh. Last ditch effort is to just buy the top and to buy like the windows, because you can actually just buy that material. But yeah, we want to get a tan top on here. Today's video is probably one of the most fun that we've had installing decals or installing things onto this Jeep. We just freshly installed the fenders, the bumpers, got everything bolted back together, and the one biggest thing that was missing, or the few of them, was the decals that really had important features to them. Now you can see, I'm not going to say all of our decals have important features, especially on this build. We've got little Lulu on the back, Rough Rider, Toots, a lot of those decals that we've been putting sporadically on the Jeep throughout the build. But in today's video, it was time to put on the big ones. Now, a little bit history on this type of build. I want to give a huge props to Jeep for actually redoing the decals on their 41 edition to be flat gray, which is very much like Anvil. We did not want to go with that color, and we wanted to make them white just because they popped a little bit more. And anytime you see a World War II Jeep on a photo, they're in white. We also wanted to take some time to make these historically accurate as much as we could without actually pulling out the spray paint and the stencils and spraying it all onto our brand new Wrangler. We could have done it on the bumpers, but we did order these as decals. I wanted to give a shout out to militarystencils.com, because they are who provided all the decals for this build. And when I say provided, they didn't send them for free. I went onto their website, chose everything, ordered everything, and got about $200 worth of decals shipped to our door. Very old school site, but they know their stuff. And if you guys are curious where we got any of this, we will leave a link down below. Not sponsored at all. The guy's been doing it since 1972, and it's really, really awesome. So the first decal up to bat, arguably one of the most iconic for an original World War II Jeep, was the Hood Star. Now, these Hood Stars would have come in 2 different styles, just the standard Star and then the Invasion Star, which you are going to see install on our Jeep. And originally, it's funny because we actually had the manual out there, and the original width of the entire Wrangler is 46 inches, or the Willys MB. So we really had to do some playing around to make sure that this Star looked good, but then also kind of give it our own little bit of a twist and center it in the hood, but also then center it in that hood bump that's on the Sport. On the original Willys MB, there wasn't any sort of extra bumps. It was just a flat hood. And there are specs on there, like it said how far to go away from the windshield. I want to say it was like 15 to 20 inches. And from our windshield to that, it was like just the start of the hood. So we had to center this out. And what we actually did too, before we installed it, to make it a bit of a cleaner install, we dropped the inside of the hood insulation and then also unbolted and removed the disconnects for the windshield washer fluid up on the hood. So we pulled both of those off, our hydro dipped pieces, we pulled both of those off. That way, when we laid this down, no matter where we put it, we could put those over top of it, and Jordan wouldn't have to cut around it, because cutting around decals just, it doesn't look good, it doesn't look professional. So we got a spot on there and decided to put it on. I'm not an expert in putting decals like this on. He grabbed Denatured Alcohol. Jordan is our absolute he's like one of our best friends, and he does such a fantastic job at doing this. If you guys are in the area and you want cool decals installed, we'll give him a plug, because reach out to him. We'll leave his stuff down below. But he got that installed, and the reason that we chose the Invasion Star, so the Invasion Star was done shortly after 1943 when the Allied troops started to invade foreign lands. So what was happening is that the smaller star that was put on from the factory was not as easily distinguishable from the air or also from different ground troops at elevations. Meaning that if you were a pilot flying over and looking at the proper location to bomb, you might have saw a small star and mistaken it for a enemy forces logo, which not too good when you're flying over. The second reason is that the Invasion Star would have been synonymous with 1945 and kind of the end of the war, and we're 80 years later. The third reason is that it was just bigger. We are working with a bigger vehicle, and we needed to kind of fill that space a little bit more. These original Willys MBs are quite small, and we wanted to fill that hood and really give it an imposing look. A lot of people have put these on their Jeeps. We've seen them on different editions. The Oscar Mike gets a small one kind of off-centered on there. Ours had to be perfectly centered, and it was the exact look that we were going for, but that was the first decal we installed, and it turned out great. The second set of decals we installed were arguably probably the second most important on the hood there. So we installed the both side hood decals. That was the second little bit. Kind of the biggest thing when we were looking at some of these photos as far as the placement of the side marker, as far as like what the unit would be, we were trying to figure out whether or not we should line it up like in the center of the hood from the front of the hood, or center it in between the hood latch and the back of the hood. So this side is centered in the hood, and I think it looks a lot better. The other side, walk over here, this is centered in between this hood latch here and the back. So a little bit of a difference there, but I do think it looks better on that other side. Now the numbers we chose to 20, the beginning of these, they always started 20. It stands for reconnaissance. The early Willys would have had a W here. We didn't put the W, we put the 20. And then normally this was like the build, I think it was almost like a VIN or a build number, but we just did 41 2025 because it's our 41 build and it's a 2025 Wrangler, and then USA at the top. So that's kind of what we went for on this, just to let you guys know what we were thinking on that. But yeah, we're gonna line it up center of the hood, and Jordan agrees with it, so I think that's the way it's gonna go. There were a ton of suggestions. Hey guys, put DRC in there, put some different letters, and yeah, that would have been fantastic for branding on the side. Put DRC in there, in that font right on the side. But we tried to keep it more original. There were some suggestions of grabbing the VIN, because that was actually the production number of the GPW as it rolled out, or the MB. In ours, we just wanted to play a little bit with those numbers, and we made it 41 2025. So this is a 41 build in the year 2025, and that's what we chose to put them on there. So it's 2041 2025. The numbers all fit, they work. Yeah, it's not the production number or the VIN of the Jeep, but it's a little bit better than having letters on the side. The only letter we didn't put was the S on the end, which stands for suppressed, for vehicles that would have been carrying radio equipment, which I did explain a little bit in the install process if we caught that on camera. But yeah, two really cool decals on the side there. They fit very nicely. We did get them, I want to say the 3-inch decals. You can either get them in 2-inch or 3-inch. We have a lot more room to work with, so we got them in 3-inch. Jordan stacked them perfectly there and got them applied. So the 4th and the 5th decals, that's where this Jeep starts to come into distinguishing what it's for and what unit it would have been part of. And with this, the beginning part of it started with a lot of research. So I am sitting here staring at an enlisted record and report of honorable discharge. Now this is from my great uncle who served in World War II. I did not have a chance to meet him. My dad did. Obviously, it was my grandmother's brother, so she was very close with him, but he did not talk much, if not at all, about his service during World War II. All we heard was just little bits and rumors and little tiny stories that my dad told me over the years, but not really much. So what I wanted to do is kind of do some research into him. So it's my family member here, and it's kind of something that meant a little bit more, because I didn't know much about what he did, how he served, and what it really meant to us as a family. Now, I do come from a military family. My dad served, my grandpa, my grandma were both Air Force veterans, and a long line of a lot of folks in our family have served, and this is kind of to honor him. So it would be my great uncle Robert. He served as part of the medical detachment in the 157th Infantry Regiment, 45th Division. Now I hope the red and white start to make a little bit more sense on the fender vents. As you're looking at these decals, he was part of the 157th Infantry and the 45th Division. So that's what those numbers on the left-hand side, or I should say right-hand side of the Jeep, but left-hand side of the front bumper, that's what those mean. So that's based off of him. You know, that would have been what would have been on a Jeep that he would have driven. And he was part of the medical detachment as well. So that was a detachment that would have been attached to the regiment or to the division, and he would have helped kind of wherever he needed to be. So this was pretty crazy for me. I don't know if he was in Med 4 or what unit of the Jeep it would have been, but I chose 4 just because there was something in one of the stories my grandmother told me a long time ago, but I put the Med 4 on there. Now, his date of service, he enlisted in service September 13th of 1943. I got out in 1946. He landed in Italy and basically fought all the way through. So the story goes that, you know, he earned his Rome Arno, Southern France, and Rhineland battles and campaign badges, got a Good Conduct Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Theater ribbon, and a World War II victory ribbon. So he really, from what my grandmother says, he was involved in a lot and just didn't talk about it. Being a medic in World War II, I can only imagine the absolute horrors that they witnessed. I did research this unit, this regiment, and from what they said, they were basically fighting from the moment they landed in Italy. So it was a non-stop fight. The second rumor is that because he was a Technician 5, he actually drove for Patton a little bit. So that is a rumor, and I don't know if it can ever be proven because, you know, everyone has kind of passed on. But it's really cool to read all this stuff. And, you know, I didn't get to see any of this just because I was too young. He had passed before I was born. But to see all the Army of the United States, the honorable mentions here, it's pretty meaningful to me. And it just, I don't know. That's what these decals mean up front. So, but yeah, that's a bit of history on what those meant today. So kind of really proud of being able to have that on there. Honor all these folks and just be able to move forward like that. I just think it's a really cool little touch, you know, especially it drives home with myself, my family, and that's what this whole build is about, is honoring those folks and honoring everyone that serves. So I hope you guys can appreciate that portion. It seems like the last video, everyone said some really cool stuff. They said you know, the one comment said a lot of these guys are probably looking down, honored that we're keeping this up. So yeah, the front bumpers though, yeah, Jordan got them on perfectly. One tidbit, you probably don't want to do this as quick as we did. We installed the paint and got it all painted on there and then did it like a day or two afterwards. You really want to let the paint cure a little bit because the paint that we used is that hard, it's that rigid, that Jordan said some of the chemical properties actually release like a ceramic portion to it, and the decals didn't want to stick on the bumpers. I mean, he fought to get them on. Luckily, he's an expert and was using the heat guns, using some other tips and tricks, and got them to stick, got them to really dig in a little bit. But in the future, if we do have to repaint them, we can add on some stencils, or maybe we'll spray it ourselves. But yeah, a little tidbit, if you use this kind of paint, or if you're looking to put decals on a fresh vehicle or a freshly painted surface, just let it cure for about 2 or 3 weeks. That's the best bet. So the last two that we installed were basically very similar to the front. On the back bumper of the Willys MB, there would have been 2 decals as well, just denoting what unit it was in and then also what vehicle it was in. So that was basically the same from the front to the back. The only difference is that they are in a smaller font, a smaller text, and they originally would have been installed on bumperettes. Now we were gonna do bumperettes on this Jeep. I actually had bumperettes from a reproduction company that made them out of 1/4 inch in the cart, and we were gonna add them onto the vehicle. However, after the design and everything we went for, we didn't add those on. I think it would have looked cool, but I don't know if it would have looked like too much. And we are trying to blend a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new, and I think there is a weird mix that you don't want to cross. So on the back there, yeah, we got them on the left-hand side and on the right. Little bit that it kind of stank because we had the tire carrier that fell over on the right, but you can still see the Med 4. Med is on top, 4 is on the bottom if you look at it from the rear. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is that we weren't able to install the bumper stars. In the back, we have a license plate in the center, and then in the front, we have a winch fair lead. Maybe in the future on the front, we could probably put one behind the fair lead and you would just see a little bit of the star, but I don't know how far you want to push it. I think when you look at the Jeep and what we go see today and what we're going to go out and check out, you get the entire gist of it, and we don't really need a ton more decals. But let's go out. We took the top almost off. We took the doors off. Let's go check out the Jeep and
let's show you how these look. Well guys, here it is. We have got the top and doors fully removed on this Jeep. Well, I shouldn't say fully, the top's just flipped back, but it is still chilly here in PA. We wanted to get a good view of what this thing looked like with all the decals added and then almost in its final or truest form. Man, we are just thrilled with the way that this Jeep is turning out. I think I've said that about a million times, but all the decals here with the doors and top folded back just make this Jeep look that much more special. Now we do have a couple more decals. We actually have a bunch of decals still in the bag that we were debating putting on. Where do we put them? Where would we set them? I think there is a point of this where we could go overkill with the decals and it would start to be just decals everywhere on the thing. Now a lot of these old school Jeeps, when they were used in war, when they were in World War II, they would have just had spray painted decals, different things put on them that they needed. But with ours, I think this is going to be pretty dang close to what the final version looks like as far as the decals and the exterior looks. There is always time for improvement. There's always room for suggestions. A lot of people were talking about the Pioneer rack. A lot of people were talking about axes, shovel mounts, this, that, and the other. We've got some creative ideas with some of that, and that will come as the future goes. But yeah, I'm very happy with the way that this looks right now, and I don't think that we're going to be changing it up too much. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. First of all, we're not in our original studio. We're down here at KMG Detailing, and Kevin's just about wrapping up the Jeep, and I said, can I come in and start ripping apart these seats? So what we've got the passenger seat laid out here on the table, and we're going to be swapping out all of the upholstery on here from cloth to a full custom leather seats, front and rear. Now on the Jeep, we've pretty much dialed in the whole exterior of it, right? We've got the decals, the custom bumpers, all of the heritage going on out there. And then you look at the inside and it just was not adding up. Originally, these Jeeps in 1941 would have been an olive drab or like a lighter tan canvas, and it wouldn't have been a gray cloth like you see here. Now, while we're not going for a complete original canvas olive drab inside, we've got some absolutely custom leather upholstery seats for this that are going to look incredible on here. What I want to do is I want to show you kind of how to get this ripped apart. This isn't going to be a step-by-step, and I do want to say this right in the beginning. This should be done by a professional installer. We're just two dudes that know what we're doing, so we're going to rip this apart and show you maybe some of the hopefully no problems that we run into, but we're going to be doing this on a 25. There's not much content out there, and we want to completely transform this seat into a custom seat. Yeah guys, so you're going to be diving in pretty deep. This isn't seat covers, this is actually all new upholstery, so we've actually got to remove quite a bit of the factory pieces. And first step is kind of getting all these trim pieces off. The one thing I will note is, like I said, leave this to a professional. We're just two dudes in a garage doing it because there are airbags in the front seats. And really get down into this thing, it's kind of crazy to see the inner workings of it and pull all of the cloth off. That's one thing I'm concerned about, is this little pull here too, is how to get all that off. Kind of an interesting way to do it, but I don't know, we like to learn new things here, and I think there's only one way to learn, and that's just to get in and to do it. So we have some channels down here. And we did buy a steam gun because I read online that a steam gun is a good idea for stuff like this, but a lot of Phillips head screws, a lot of stuff to pull off. I just want to see what's behind here. I don't think it's, yeah, it's just like channels and stuff. Oh look, our foam's already cracked. That's cool. Shouldn't be.
Nice.
That shouldn't be there, but there's an airbag right there too. Great. All right, I think we're ready. We're gonna disconnect the seat, the upper seat frame. We're pulling hog rings off here. That's what attaches the actual upholstery through what's called listing rods. You gotta be careful with these because you don't wanna rip up the foam underneath, but they can be a little bit tricky to come out. So these actually clamp together and it holds, Ryan, if you look right here, there's a good, so this is called a listing rod. The hog ring goes around this, and then there's a rod in the seat right here. So it kind of like clamps them two together. We got new hog rings, so you want to go through and pull all these off. They almost like want to twist off. Like they don't really like rip out too nicely, but it seems like the best way is still through a pair of snips, and then to just kind of to yank them off like so. So there's the listing rod underneath there. You just don't want to cut that. We're gonna go around and rip all these off, and we're just, it's almost like peeling like an onion kind of. And there's the airbag. So airbag's in there. We're gonna try and get all of the hog rings off, and then we'll deal with that off camera, because that's why you have a professional do it. All right, Ryan?
Yes.
So you don't have to touch the airbags. Take these out. This will be the last. If anyone's ever done upholstery, you know these are some of the most fun.
Are
to fit it over. Yeah, they're hard. But they gotta come off. That part I am really curious about. The, so on a two-door, this. Like, I don't know if it'll pull off around it. There's only 18 ways to find out. It seems like that separated. Okay, maybe it does separate. Maybe this... Cool, it does. The cool thing is once you're done with this, I think I'm gonna cut a slit right here and wear this as a fashionable jacket. So this is the upper half removed. You can see a lot going on in the back. There's Velcro, all sorts of goodies. Check this out. So these are the listing rods that we're talking about on there. That's actually what gets pinched along there. Let's see when this was built. Piston Interiors LLC. So if you want to know who makes factory stuff, Piston Interiors LLC. I never knew that. Well, the cat's out of the bag. Literally, Cat Skin is the upholstery company for today. Now, what's cool about this is that this is kind of like the start of a relationship. So we are going to be working with Cat Skin and with Jeep Performance Parts, and they are launching a website where you can build out seats just like this, but you can add so much customization. The cool thing about Cat Skin is that they're officially Mopar licensed, and this is a Jeep Performance part. Now, I know that's okay, cool, it's got two brands to it. You can utilize factory logos, factory lettering, Rubicon 392, High Tide, Jeep Beach, Rubicon. You can get all of that stitched on. It's the proper font and all of that stuff. But I think that's enough talking because their designer there at Cat Skin, which I gotta be really careful. I don't think using a knife right into this is a great idea. But they designed these seats specifically for our 41 build. We had a couple options and I don't know, I think this is the first time I'm seeing it. I think this is gonna be, dude, are you joking me? That's the color we went with. Pearl stitch, and I'm gonna have to find the color. Ryan, we'll leave it down below in the comments, or maybe you can pop it up on screen. Amaretto. Amaretto is the color, and this is a perforated US flag in this as well. So check this out. American flag, stars, and stripes perforated into this. It was hard because I didn't want to do olive drab. Like I thought olive drab might clash with the other colors outside. A dark brown leather was a lot of the same as like the holsters and other leather belts and straps that were worn during World War II. And I felt like this was a close match. It's a subtle way to tie it in, but we were also thinking like baseball mitt leather. Like something when this gets broken in, it's gonna look worn. It's gonna get that baseball mitt feel. And then the pearl stitching on here, this if you look at it is actually like pearl white stitching. I think this just gives a little bit of pop, ties in the white from the outside of the Jeep. All right, so we got some hog ring pliers here. I overnighted these. These are actually neat because they have spring tension in, so it holds the hog ring for you. So brand new hog rings here. This will just kind of sit in here like so, and I'll show you an example of what happens. Just squeeze them, and it closes like that. And then that's what a good hog ring looks like, and that's what will be underneath here. We've got a box of 500 of them, and we only need probably about 50, so we should be okay. This gets interesting. This is where it gets fun. I'm gonna start with this back line right here, go to the center line, and then do both sides. Now you just kind of work this and start having fun because this is gonna be fun. This is where the paid professional part is like awesome, but also, I don't know, there's kind of like a pride of being able to do it yourself, but I don't know if you're supposed to, really. And you're also trying to be careful because you don't want to puncture through the seat itself. Okay, so the back's on. Still got some play, and what I think I'm gonna do, this could come back to bite me, but I think I'm gonna do this middle section right here. A little bit of tension there. Maybe I have to, once I pull this, it should tighten up a little bit. Since we have sport, can unzip the back. Kind of interesting. So we're gonna lay this, and I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the airbag in, kind of slide it in, bolt that back into place, then kind of start working on this side. But this is the correct side because it's got the cutout over here for the two-door release latch, which is attached to all these. Make sure these are pressed in because there was like a little bit of like a Velcro section right here. That's gonna look so good on this. I gotta this strap goes around something and that strap goes around something. I just don't recall what it went around. Which way did this sit? Like that, okay. That looked factory. Woo! Welcome to the Dirt Road Upholstery Incorporated. All we gotta do is put these side pieces on, and then repeat the same process on the other side, and then also do the rear. And that's it, it's really simple. All right, well, we got the passenger side just about wrapped up. I would give it about, this took about 3 hours to get this done. And from everywhere I saw online, that's probably about the length of time it takes for the first seat, just to make sure everything goes on perfect. You just have to be super careful. If you're doing this kind of stuff, like, it does take a level of precision that, I don't know. It's not like insane, but putting everything back needs to be on there perfectly. What do you guys think? Let me know about the low back, because a lot of the concept vehicles actually don't put a headrest back there. You can see we have ours. We stripped off the factory components on it, and they're actually sending us some Jeep Performance Parts emblems that are embroidered into them, so we couldn't put the standard one on. But we might just leave it like this for Daytona. I kind of like the low back seat, and I think it fits the build a little bit better. But I'm going to pick this thing up. We're gonna put all 4 of the Torx bolts back into the floor. Then we're gonna tackle the driver's side off camera, and then maybe we'll see how bad the rear one is. I'm nervous about it, but we'll see. There's only one way to do it, and that's to do it. So if you guys are doing a 2-door seat, this is how it is. Check this out. This little plastic piece you have to pull off on the sides. Maybe I didn't need to take that plastic cover off, but I actually probably still did. Okay, all right. Not so bad so far, Ryan. This has got it. I mean, I know it's hog ringed. Yeah. What? It's Velcroed there? Is it hog ringed here? No, it's hog ringed in the middle. Dang it. I thought it was all Velcro. I was gonna be like, we just hit the frickin'. One seatbelt at a time.
It's not that bad.
No. It's really not that bad getting any of them off. It's just remembering how they went back on.
So we'll have to send it through first.
Yeah, these back here. This listing rod in the back. Let's just say that's not easy to get to. This back here. But maybe we'll start with it. Yeah, we'll send it through first. Yeah, guys, this is the first time I've ever ripped apart the back of a 2-door. The backside doesn't come off too bad. I'm kind of curious to see how this all starts to pull off around all the other goodies around here. Like all your, you have the release here. Then up front, of course, I'm sure we have some hog rings. And there's like seat tethers. I think that's just to notify where the tethers are. I don't know. This is all, it's all freshly new to me. Oh, that's like, there's push pins right there. See, there was one. Well, there's another one right there. I didn't get it. There's one. Oh, right there. Oh, that's really weird. So that's what it looks like without a headrest on. You have to get this off with 2 of these very awkward clips. This slides on like this, maybe? Here. And then clips go on. It's really weird. Really interesting setup. But that's what it looks like with them off. Took us a minute. Now we're gonna put the lower section on. I'm gonna get all these hog rings on the lower part, get the seatbelt through, tuck it around, and do the top part. Whew. They look good. It's a lot of work. Yeah, we gotta, so it's a little bit loose around here. We gotta get some of, this is Velcro actually underneath here and those rods that go in. So it's just about aligning those and kind of getting them in once you're done. So that's one thing we did forget. So we're gonna get those all pushed in. And then I'm sure in the sun, that leather will stretch out and really fit in nice, but it's looking like a brand new Jeep in here already. That looks awesome. Gotta get the new headrests on to the tops, and then we'll get them clipped back into there. So, all right, well, let's throw it in, guys, and we'll show you what the entire Jeep looks like. Now, before we show you the final reveal of these seats, today on this here of the video, we wanted to actually acknowledge Ryan's family member. So Ryan's stepdad's parents both served in World War II, and I've got a brief history of them here as well as a really cool decal that we're going to install. So Ryan's stepdad's mom, June, started active duty in January of 1944 and served in general and field hospitals overseas as part of the Army Nurse Corps. She received following citations including European Theater Ribbon, World War II Occupation Medal, and the World War II Victory Medal, and was discharged in November of 1947 with the rank of captain. It was extremely rare. My grandma was in the military, but it was very rare for women to be in, so that was amazing that she was able to go over there and help out with the victory and all of our service members. And then his dad, John, was activated in March of 1943 as part of the 366th Medical Battalion. Very fitting with this Jeep because we have Med 4 on this side. Part of the 66th Infantry Division and was involved in the Northern France campaign and ultimately the Battle of the Bulge, which occurred in Belgium. He received the following citations: a Good Conduct Medal, American Theater Ribbon, and the World War II Victory Medal. And he was later part of the headquarters of U.S. forces in Austria, where he spent a year during the occupation of Germany. He left the military in 1946 with the rank of corporal, and Tom's mom was also in Austria at the same time, and that's where they met. They were married in Fort Sam, Houston, Texas, which is really cool. Texas is a huge military state. So Tom, thank you to you and your family, and to you, Ryan. And with this, we've got an interior decal, and this is the 66th Division U.S. Army, but you actually can tell this is a interior decal, so it's very fitting for today's video because we're doing an interior mod. Ryan, you said this was actually from a reunion years and years ago. So like this is an old decal. How fitting. That's super cool. And the Panther on there, that's like straight World War II. So I think we're going to put it right on the inside of the windshield there by the little Willys Jeep in there. So let's put this on. I'm kind of nervous because it's an old decal, but it should go on cool. So let's throw that on and then show you the seats. All right, well, we have just wrapped up a successful first time for the JL, an interior leather upholstery kit. Now, I wanted to give a huge thank you to Jeep Performance Parts as well as Catskin. Catskin did provide this kit free of charge, and we wanted to give them a huge thank you because we just worked with their designers and felt that this design worked perfectly on the inside of this Jeep. Now, we did these ourselves. I will tell you there was a lot off camera that we didn't show on camera. There was some points where Ryan was pulling bolsters of the foam down, stretching it together. Heck, even Kevin was over. We were pulling the zippers together to get them on the side pieces. This is a pretty involved job, and there was a lot of cutting, and if you cringe at cutting brand new parts or using a blade to brand new parts, probably don't do this. Catskin has a wide variety of installers in your area, no matter where you live, so you basically can go on, build these seats out, have them shipped to an installer, and get them done. And I think the average cost is probably, I don't even know, maybe $800 to $1,000, but this was 8 to 10 hours of work. So depends on how confident you are doing it. We are extremely pleased with how they turned out though. I think the color, we were looking for that baseball glove leather, so that kind of color, and then baseball gloves always back in the day had white stitching on them. That's exactly what we got with these, and boy are they comfortable too. Today on Dirt Road Cred, we're going to compare the original to our 2025 Jeep Wrangler Willys 41 build. Let's check them out and show all the differences. We've got one sitting right next to it, and there are a lot of cool differences and some similarities that we were able to do. So a cool thing for us having this next to our 2025 build is we actually had to search around to find something like this to compare it to. Not only that, to be able to sit on a nice day and be able to check out how they look. So Matt, he is local to the area. This is in Hershey. He's got a good name. It's the same as mine. And what he does is he has this vehicle. He used it for his personal wedding, but then he also rents it out to weddings, events, to be able to check it out and take some photos with it and do some cool things. Use it almost like a nice prop in the backdrop. But this is a 1945 Willys MB, and the cool thing with this is it's still the same as a 41. There's a couple different differences. Obviously the 41, like he said, had this fabricated grille and had some other little changes to it, but the grand scheme of things, this is what we were trying to replicate. Just the stark contrast of seeing them side by side is absolutely incredible, just how big the 2025 is, and he couldn't even believe that's still stock suspension on that Jeep. So just the sheer size of this right away. So a lot of people were wondering where we got that front light and what it is. This is actually the blackout light from an original Willys MB that we bought off of eBay and put on ours. We had to custom fabricate a bracket because typically these would be mounted on the Fender Flares. You've got much more of a fender on the original Jeep than what we have, but it's the exact same thing. He actually did say he swapped out the entire wiring system to a 12 volt instead of a 6 volt. So you can see there's one wire coming out of this. It's like a cloth wire, and that's what powers this. And then there's a ground that actually just goes to the tub because the whole tub is grounded on this. Another interesting bit right away on the front, this bumper is actually the exact same size as this bumper width-wise. This is 46 and ours is 46. And you can see this bumper
Goes to about the center tread of the tire. This doesn't even hit the tire at all. Now, I'd be curious to see if we put a factory wheel on here, what that looked like. But just going off of this, you can see how much more wide this Jeep is compared to the original one. And I'm gonna let this have an argument in the comments because I really want to see who knows their Jeep stuff. Why did the original one have 9 slots and then this one gets 7 slots? I'm not gonna tell you because I do know why, but you guys let me know down below in the comments why. 5-inch headlights on here, some blackout or some cat's eyes in the front. But look at all the space in between this front bumper, Ryan. They didn't have winches on here. The original ones would have had almost like a hand crank winch. It would actually wrap around and there was a big rope area where you could put it on. We did decide to put a winch on ours just for time's sake because we want to actually be able to use it. But really interesting up at the front, all 4 corners of this are leaf sprung too. Coil springs to leaf springs. What's really interesting is I've rebuilt a couple M416 vehicles, or the trailers, and if you look under here, these shocks are actually the same as the M416. The front axles on here, these are an AMC 20, I believe, or these are it's a 20 up front, right? Yeah, Dana 20, and then in the rear is a 30. Yeah, so Dana 20 up front, 30 in the rear. Now we've got a 30 up front and a 35 in the rear of this one. But look at this steering, Ryan, too. This is also really interesting. Check out this, the way this pivots in here. So it's got like dual arms on this. I haven't never been this up close to one to be able to check it out like that. It's got twin arms that go to each side, and then the pitman arm is almost fixed on the center of the axle and then just goes right to the steering shaft. Really, really interesting here. If we look at the wheels, that's one thing I wanted to compare. These were the more desirable wheels. So these were 1943-ish, 44-ish. They actually did these split rim wheels. So what's neat about these is all of these stud heads, Ryan, all of this, connect the two. These are 2-piece wheels. So if you're in the field and you blow out a tire with a standard wheel, you got to take a pry bar, get the bead to pop off, try and swap it. This, you can actually split the wheel in 2 pieces, bolt it to another tire, and you're good to go. So that's what's really neat on there. Got obviously your hubs up front. Inner fenders where everything is green on this, which is the cool thing. Like, we should have stripped ours down to a bare frame because everything is green. This is the hardest thing to do, Ryan. We couldn't get this style of fender. MCE Fenders makes one for a JK, but they didn't go up to the JL, so we had to make do, and I'm happy with the Motobill fenders. It does look a little bit different, well, quite a bit different from the factory ones, but it still gives us that look of that more narrow, that kind of harder lines on the fender flare. Seeing this shot though, Ryan, looking right through the doors, is pretty cool. We've got a lot more color, obviously, than this one. This is all just olive drab. This is an oil-based paint on here. But yeah, no doors would have been on here. This is no doors at all. You could adjust the windshield, fold it all the way down. This one has a twin stick transfer case, and then obviously is a manual transmission. That's what everyone is judging us on. Go with a manual transmission. This one is a manual. Ours is an automatic, of course, but we just couldn't get it because that was the first one in the country. Really interesting tidbit. This is how safe they were back in the day. That's the fuel tank right underneath the driver's seat. So probably not the best spot for a fuel tank looking at it back in hindsight. But where the heck else are you gonna fit it to be able to get that much clearance? So on the sides here, these are the soft top bows as well. So this will flip up. You can throw a soft top on there. This is one thing we were talking about off camera. Do we add one of these on here? These are like tie downs or a grab handle then. But I think the coolest thing though, looking at it from the back, is like, I guess like maybe how similar we got it, looking at them side by side. Now he had about a license plate up there. I can see there's a fabricated bracket because in PA you do have to have a license plate. We've got our bumperettes, and then we've got a lunette pintle hitch in the center. We didn't go with the bumperettes because we had to mount the tire carrier. Also, I didn't know how close I wanted it to look to stock, but we've got lunettes on the back. We've got these bumperettes, some marker lights in the back, some brake lights, and then as well as some kind of reflectors there too. Original jerry can right next to it. That's how we try to do it with the modern roto packs, is make them right next to it. And honestly, it's crazy seeing how narrow these tires are too. They are 6 inches wide. They're so tiny compared to this. Got a nice shovel in the back, but I don't know, Ryan, how close could we have got it? We got the star on the right spot. We got the star. Same thing on the sides. We got our lower indicators there as well, but just, I think the sheer size of this is kind of what's messing with me. But the one thing that is bigger on this little Jeep is the steering wheel. Look at how much bigger the steering wheel is in there. And that's actually what they tried to do on our steering wheel, is they tried to like match those spokes. That's why if you ever look at the center of your Jeep wheel, you see how there's like 3 little marks around the airbag? That's what those spokes are designed to look like, the original right here. But yeah, this would be bigger here because it doesn't have power steering. So the whole point of having a bigger steering wheel is to have more leverage to be able to help turn in tight situations, than also because there is no power steering. How are we gonna mount shovels up to the side? Because you've got a lot more, you've got this much body space and we've got that much body space. So we can't really mount a shovel up here. Some people were talking about tube doors, mounting them up onto a half door. Now we've got washout floors. He doesn't have drain holes. Yeah, there is drain holes, yeah. There are drain holes. We've got our Armorlite with drain holes here. That's probably the biggest difference though, is we went with this style of a leather seat and the original is canvas. But we didn't want to make it completely original. We wanted to give it a little bit of canvas. And if you look at the leather or that material down there at the boots, that's similar to what it would have been in a lot of the leather on these vehicles, but it's very well done. We were talking about doing different gauges and how we would match them. The originals were black and white like that, so I think if we go with anything, that's what we're gonna do with. It's kind of neat. There's the choke. This is carbureted, so you pull that in the morning, choke it up a little bit when it's cold outside. That way it can run a little bit better. How hard is it for you to fold this windshield down? Can we fold it down? Yeah, it's a little bit quicker. So they did start changing it on the JLs. They made it a little bit quicker, but look at how much farther forward this windshield goes on. Now what's neat is if you look at this, Ryan, see these blocks right here? They are wood. They're just painted over with olive drab green. We tried to do that with ours. You can see how much further back this hood snout is because that's where our hood would rest, right there on those wood blocks there. I don't know, it's pretty cool to see this side by side. Kind of just checking out the differences too. We got our grille fully matched. There wasn't much in between there. So I mean, honestly, it would probably look better if we would just remove these hexagons if we were trying to go for historically accurate, because there's nothing in there. There's no protection for your radiator at all. So this is about 2,000 pounds here. Those JLs, I believe they curb in at about 3,800 to 3,900 pounds. So pretty much double the weight, curtain airbags, everything else on there. But yeah, just a cool side by side to see what we were trying to do. So let's look at what else we got going on the side. Obviously 2.0 in the front, we got the USA. We do have the Normandy, the Invasion Star up top, and he's got just the standard Combat Star, so a little bit different there. Seats and the interior, that's probably where I would say it's like the furthest from the original, unless we like rhino lined this and like hydro dipped the dash and made everything green. That's how we would get it really close. He doesn't have gas. Well, there's the same star. We have gas over our fuel door here. The top, we wanted tan. He has the canvas top. It would be the same matching one as that. And then on the rear too, we've got our taillights. We do have reflectors, but that's what we were trying to go with. We have reflectors on the side here that match up with the olive drab or the 41 color. So that's what I do like about this, is that we tried to get it as close as we could. And then the top, obviously, like I said, it's tan compared to it, but I think the tan looks a heck of a lot better. I don't know, did we nail it on the back end though? Besides the bumperettes, I think it's pretty close. The bumperettes on the lunette, maybe throw some more reflectors on there, or maybe that kind of those original grab handles on either side might look cool, but then how far do you go until it's too far? So this is actually an original Jeep CJ2A engine. The only way you're able to tell is from the front serial number on this. This is still air-cooled. You can see the radiator fan up here, small radiator. He did swap it over all through a full 12-volt system. These would have originally been 6-volt. It's kind of hard to find the parts and everything else with those to make them work, but this restoration is pretty serious. You can see all the cloth wire on here running into the original or OEM replica parts. You've got your radiator, your upper coolant hose, air intake. Look at how much smaller the air intake tube is than that. Like, I mean, it's just sheer difference how much smaller. He said on a good day, this thing makes about 65 horsepower, and ours is pushing upwards of almost 300. Got your air filter over there. And he did say off camera that he is having this in, taking it in for service because it is sputtering when it's under load. So something's going on with it, much like ours, except you can keep tinkering with this thing and you could probably make it home. Besides ours, when it pulls a sensor like that, you can't do anything. A lot of people were asking about fabricating this. I don't want to drop the bolt. Yeah, look at that, Ryan. So that would actually flip up. Now this is catching just a little bit. Remember, this is somebody else's Jeep too, so I don't want to mess with it too bad, but this will flip up and it would actually illuminate the engine bay. So that's pretty slick on there. That was the headlights. They had those doing it back in the day. Everything on this was meant to be multi-purpose. So what's neat about that is you were able to flip this up, check out what you needed to under the hood, and then when you're done, just put the washer and wing that right back on it, and you're ready to drive down the road. I think that would take us quite some fabrication, Ryan, to do on our Jeep, but like it's the little things on that that I think make these old ones so cool. Yeah, look at the liner. This is the hood liner. It's felt compared to rubber gasket. Still a 4-cylinder Hurricane on ours. The intake's on the same side, but up at the front, we've got fuse boxes, batteries. This thing's pushing 300 horsepower, and then a ton of wiring. Just look at how much more complex this is than that underneath the hood. So really not much on ours that's cool to see. That's pretty neat to see how simple it is, and that you could probably diagnose it or fix it on the side of the road versus being dead in the water like ours was. This is actually one neat thing. We have them kind of pulled side by side here or head to head to get some shots at the end. One thing we notice is that the actual clearance underneath the frame and some of the mechanical bits is pretty dang close. I would even argue that there's more clearance on the Willys MB right there compared to our 2025. even though ours is so much bigger, so much taller, more clearance on that one. Also a side exit exhaust. And then Matt was actually telling me the little rib section on the underside there is actually the emergency brake. Like it spins and then it has the kind of brake pads inside of it that actually expand and are the emergency brake for that. Really cool to see them like this though, but you can see how much higher our front bumper is even than that one, but they still have, the old one has even more ground clearance, so it was built for a purpose. All right, guys, as we close this one out, we just wanted to thank Matt, especially from Hershey, for bringing out his 1945 Willys MB to let us check out here in person. It's kind of neat to, as we close this build out, just to see them side by side and kind of see what we were going for. We obviously looked at a lot of photos, saw a lot of them in person, but wanted to try and get it as close as we could to this without making it look kind of too cheeseball, right? Like you can go too far and you can try and flatten the dash out and really go crazy, maybe put leaf springs back under this thing. But as we approach Memorial Day, we thought this was very fitting to show off both of these Jeeps side by side and really commemorate those that have given the ultimate sacrifice, especially those back in World War II. This Jeep next to us is 80 years old. I would venture to say it's older than most people in this country, and yet it is still cruising down the road. And this is a huge shout out to the people that are keeping these Jeeps running. And then also, like us, we're trying to commemorate those individuals that were involved with these Jeeps back when they were new. So it's cool to see them side by side, get some ideas from the original like this. I'm even seeing some shovel ideas, the mirrors, some things like that we can kind of tinker with in the future to really truly get ours to be a little bit closer to this one, but not go overkill and still be able to enjoy the drive. Drop a comment down below on what key features you saw off of this that we should try and incorporate onto this one. I know the big one lately has been, you guys should remove the roll cage just like this one, and it's like, that's a lot of work. Curtain airbags, and yeah, I think I'll keep the roll cage in case something happens. But either way, we hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the full build. If you haven't seen the full build, be sure to go back through and you can click on the playlist and watch everything that we did to get this to look as close as we could to this one. But until next time, my name is Matt, Ryan's behind the camera, and we want you to get out there and earn yours.